Chapter 509. Zhao Qinyuan's dragon spear was like a bolt of lightning, killing a monster tree puppet soldier. He turned to look at the crazed crowd, his complexion dignified. Demonic qi invading the spirit. The demonic energy in the small world was abundant, but cultivators could not directly absorb and refine it. Otherwise, their minds would be eroded, and they would eventually become demonic creatures that only knew how to kill. But everyone knew this. As long as one had the qualifications to enter the demon ascension gate, they would receive a warning in advance. So, why would this group of people collectively fall into the demonic path? As Zhao Qinyuan furrowed his eyebrows in thought, Su Guzi fell down like a falling leaf. Scion Zhao, these people have been bewitched. There was some surprise on his face, but even more excitement. Those who had been possessed by the devil had lost their minds, so they could be the scapegoats for the others and open up a path for them. Whoosh! Whoosh! Dong Hanju, Zhou Fenghuang, Li Mingxian, and Mu Qingwan all flew back. Sun Zifu, who had been under everyone's protection, naturally ran faster than anyone else. They were all smart people and could naturally see the current situation clearly. With these people who were possessed, there was no need for them to risk their lives. Preserving their strength to deal with the unexpected was the best choice. Zhao Qianyuan always felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't figure out just what exactly was wrong. He pondered for a moment and said, "Let's retreat a little and be on high alert." Seeing Zhao's serious expression, everyone's hearts trembled. They nodded their heads, not daring to be careless. With Lung Feng and Han Cheng in the lead, the group of cultivators who had fallen to the demonic Tao erupted with shocking power. One of the unremarkable female cultivators had actually awakened a demonic bloodline, and it was an extremely rare, cursed bloodline. Dark gray mist lingered around her body, and any demon tree puppet soldiers that came into contact with it would immediately wither and die. Her power was extremely terrifying. Even someone as cruel and ruthless as Dong Hanju couldn't help but rejoice in his heart. If it weren't for these people falling into the demonic path, a great battle would have been inevitable. Besides Zhao Qianyuan, none of them would have been able to obtain much of an advantage. Lung Feng, Han Cheng, and the others burst forth with extremely powerful, destructive power. After falling into the demonic Tao, their minds fell, and they were controlled by a berserk, killing intent. They did not know how to preserve their strength. Su Guzi used the power of the enchantment to carefully guide them forward. The monster tree puppet soldiers and puppet generals that came crashing down like a massive wave died on the ground. A channel was forcefully torn open, leading straight towards the desolate tree monster tree. Qin Yu's eyes were closed, and there was no expression on his face. With the help of the cosmic Sea-Cross bell, he could clearly sense the changes occurring in the battlefield. When Lung Feng, Han Cheng, and the others succumbed to the demonic path, he opened his eyes and looked to the left, a cold glint flashing in his eyes. Indeed, a true person couldn't be judged by their appearance. Beneath her pure and white lotus-like appearance was an extremely vicious heart. If he had a chance, he wouldn't mind destroying this flower and personally sending her to hell. As for whether these people collectively falling into the demonic path had anything to do with Qinyin, this kind of matter that was placed on the table, there was really no need to consider it. Suddenly, Qin Yu's complexion changed. At the same time, within his soul space, the cosmic Sea-Cross bell began to ring out, rapid and sharp. Qin Yu, quickly leave, quickly leave. Little Mei screamed with all her might, her face filled with terror. Zhao Qianyuan paused for a moment. He looked up, his eyes like lightning, as he stubbornly stared at the distant, ancient tree monster. A blue light flashed in his eyes. In the next moment, the space in front of him distorted slightly, and the scenery changed drastically. He could see that in the crown of the ancient tree monster, countless branches had gathered together, forming something similar to an embryo. Dong, dong, some invisible rhythmic beating spread out. like countless thunderclaps roaring out, piercing straight into the depths of his soul. Zhao Qinyuan's pupils shrank. Rebirth. A deep roar instantly spread into everyone's ears. As they saw his appearance as if he were facing a great enemy, their complexions changed. Su Guzi hurriedly asked Saiyan Zhao, "What did you discover?" Zhao Qianyuan was about to speak when he stuffily coughed and blood flowed out from the corners of his lips. Beneath the ancient tree monster, the sage revealed a look of surprise. "I never thought that I would be able to discover this secret from so far away." He shook his head. "It looks like I can only activate it ahead of time. Although it isn't perfect, it should be enough." He looked up at the ancient tree monster that supported the heavens and began to chant in a low voice. The ancient and boundless syllables revolved around the inconceivably thick tree trunk, constantly shaking. Thus, the entire ancient tree monster began to shake. Then, the entire small world began to tremble. Rumble, rumble. Above their heads, the skies changed colors. Countless black clouds drilled out, weaving together into a black curtain that blocked out the skies. Blood-red thunder instantly arrived. It roared and howled, drawing out fierce faces like those of demons. The sage stopped chanting, his eyes blazing with fervor. "Return, slumbering great emperor of my race." His voice was drowned out by the roars of thunder, but it had truly awakened the slumbering will of the ancient tree monster. In the crown of the tree, within the giant embryo formed from countless branches, a pair of eyes suddenly opened. Qin Yu stiffened. His soul instinctively screamed out. He didn't doubt that the awakened big fellow could crush him to pieces with a single finger. Without a doubt, running away now was the best choice. The further he ran, the better. But Qin Yu didn't dare to move. This was because he could sense that as the big fellow awoke, some changes had occurred in this part of the world. If he really ran away, he feared he would have to withstand a heaven-shaking strike in the next moment. Qin Yu didn't have full confidence he could block it. Sweat poured down, soaking his black robes. At this moment, Qin Yu couldn't help but feel regret. But it was only for a moment before he suppressed it, because at this point it was useless to regret anything. He couldn't run. At least, he couldn't be the first to run. Luckily, there were still many people in front of him. These people might not be able to kill the big fellow, but they could still distract its attention and divert its strength. At that time, Qin Yu would have a chance. As for Zhao Qianyuan, "I'm sorry, what number one of the demonic path? What super powerhouse of the younger generation? I'm not familiar with him at all." Although there was an agreement, it was only an agreement and nothing was promised. Thus, Qin Yu didn't feel any psychological burden at all. The only thing he wanted was to preserve his own life. Zhao Qianyuan took a deep breath. His voice was a bit hoarse. "Everyone, you and I are in deep trouble." There was no need for him to waste any more words explaining. Everyone was left dumbfounded by what happened next. They saw the space in front of them distort and scatter. It was like a painting being peeled off, revealing the true scene of the world. The ancient tree monster stood between the heavens and earth. Branches wove together in the crown of the tree, forming an embryo. As it contracted and expanded, a heartbeat sounded out from this embryo, becoming louder and stronger. Su Guzi finally understood what Zhao Qianyuan meant by rebirth. His face paled and fear filled his eyes. In the land of death, to walk towards life, to reverse yin and yang, to rewrite the will of heaven, this was rebirth. After everyone heard this, their bodies stiffened. Their faces were drained of all color. In the ancient legends, there were almighty beings in the world. After they perished, their bodies and souls scattered, but they didn't perish. After experiencing endless years, they condensed their souls from nothingness, broke through the isolation of yin and yang, and descended upon the world once more. What Su Guzi said was a general description of this process, but The reason that legends were called legends was because they could only hear the sound and not see the reality. For countless years, no one had ever heard of a dead, almighty being able to return from the dead. But now they seemed to be witnessing a historic scene. Witnessing history was supposed to be an exciting thing. At this moment, everyone shivered. But this had nothing to do with excitement, but endless fear. The ancient tree monster had come back to life. To be more accurate, the monster race great emperor that had been hunted down by a demonic path almighty being in the past and used his ruined body to create a small world had returned from the dead. How could they even play? What bullshit hunt? What bullshit distribution of demon blood crystals? What bullshit opportunity to change one's destiny? This was clearly seeking death on his own initiative. Although this situation was completely self-inflicted, everyone still couldn't help but curse out Su Guzi's 88 generations of ancestors. All of them were women. You damn thing. If you want to die, then go die. Why did you activate the watchstone and drag us down with you? Zhao Qianyuan was certain that for some unknown reason he had been targeted. This wasn't intuition, but a clear judgment. The rules of the world had changed, forming an invisible cage around him. Simply put, there was nowhere he could run. But his expression remained calm. It wasn't that he wasn't panicking, but that he couldn't panic. Otherwise, all of these people that were closely surrounding him would run away in the blink of an eye. Zhao Qianyuan took a deep breath and said, "The situation is indeed terrifying, but that doesn't mean that we don't have the slightest chance of survival." He lifted a finger. "Between life and death, there is a great tribulation. You must know that breaking through the barrier of yin and yang is not a simple matter. Even if the monster race great emperor returns, he will still be in his weakest state. Although his aura is terrifying, his true strength might not be any stronger than when he was in his ruined state. Now that we are panicking, you and I will die without a doubt. But if we join forces to fight, it is unknown just who will be the final victor." Su Guzi's eyes brightened. "That's right. I suddenly thought of something. I once saw a similar record in some ancient text. To break through yin and yang, one must pay a great price. Perhaps the current ancient tree monster is even weaker than before." He swept his eyes over the massive number of monster tree puppet soldiers and puppet generals. They are proof. If they were strong enough, why would they have these puppets frantically block us? Everyone's spirits rose as they heard this. Dong Hanju licked his lips. "Whether they are strong or weak, I will not resign myself to death. Let's see just who lives and who dies today." Li Mingxian roared, "Let's go all out." Zhou Fenghuang said, "Now is not the time for us to go all out. There are still people ahead of us." Shua! Everyone's eyes fell on Lung Feng, Han Sheng, and the others. But accidents always occurred, so suddenly. Atop the ancient tree monster, there was a sudden roar from the embryo. Vast and boundless, an invisible pressure instantly swept through the world. Their eyes were blood red, their minds were corroded by killing intent, and they had completely lost all reasoning. The demonized cultivators that only knew how to kill and destroy suddenly stopped. They turned around, their blood-red eyes locking onto the crowd. Deep in their throats, they emitted roars like wild beasts. Layers of black scales appeared on the surface of their bodies. In the blink of an eye, these people had completely demonized. Bang, bang, the ground shattered. Demonic people crazily rushed forwards. At the same time, the monster tree puppet soldiers and puppet generals that were crazily surrounding them gave up on trying to stop these people. With loud rumbling sounds, they rushed towards the crowd. In an instant, the situation changed. Just as the people were waiting for the demonized cultivators to test out their firepower, they didn't even have time to curse out loud before they were submerged in a terrifying barrage of attacks. No one dared to hold back. From the very start, the slaughter entered a white-hot state. Magic power fluctuations surged out like tsunamis, tearing apart the earth and shaking the heavens. Qin Yu slowly let out a breath. He believed that the time he had been waiting for had arrived. He took a step backwards, and boundless strength rose up from his spine, howling downwards. In just 1/100th of a breath of time, his figure would shoot into the skies. But in the blink of an eye, Qin Yu's complexion changed. The speed at which he stepped forwards increased, but he also changed the direction of his strength. A wild strength rushed deep into the earth. The ground instantly exploded. Countless tree roots broke out from the earth. They were a strange crimson color. As they fell into the raging tide of strength, they only paused for a brief moment before rushing forwards once more. Luckily, this bit of time was enough for Qin Yu to escape. But his complexion still paled, because he knew that he no longer had a chance to escape. As he thought, the earth exploded again and again. Crimson tree roots shot up into the skies, like great waves crashing down, forcing Qin Yu towards the ancient tree monster. His thoughts raced. He discovered that he didn't have full confidence he could tear through the waves of tree roots. He could only sigh and rapidly retreat. A white dress, pure and beautiful like a lotus. Blue clouds stood atop the ancient tree, looking at the distant battle. There was a faint smile on his indifferent face. He had finally waited for this day. Lord Sage, I have already fulfilled my promise. I hope that you do not disappoint me. Otherwise, I will be very unhappy. He lifted a hand and a blue flower appeared. Blue Cloud pressed it between his eyebrows. This blue flower fused into his flesh and blood. A halo of light flowed on its surface, making it look lifelike. Beneath the ancient tree monster, the sage had a gratified expression. You are the one that I have chosen. As the next guardian of my race, I will naturally do my best to help you. But as for whether or not you can obtain this good fortune, that will all depend on your own luck. He turned and took a step forwards. His entire body fused into the ancient tree monster. In the crown of the tree, within the embryo of the branches, the one who opened his eyes was a naked, extremely handsome young man. As if he was being supported by an invisible force, he floated in midair. There was something that looked like an umbilical cord. It was made up of countless thin threads that grew from branches. An end of it was connected to the upper end of his spine, slightly below his neck. He was the mortal body that the monster race Great Emperor had formed by breaking through yin and yang and using the vitality of the ancient tree monster. Now, the young man's eyes flashed with ridicule before he immediately composed himself. He had already left for far, far too long, so long that everyone had forgotten just how majestic he was. To be able to return from the brink of death was enough to prove just how strong he was. And someone as strong as him, how could he possibly be injured by ants? The current juniors of his race were far too naive. Then, once he returned, he would carry out a thorough purge. The corners of his lips curled up in a light smile. But there was no warmth at all, only an icy, cold, bloodthirsty aura. You schemed against me. We both had black hearts. Chapter 510. Sun Zifu's face was deathly pale, and he rolled to the side to avoid it. His head hit something, and with a buzzing sound his vision turned black. When he finally regained his composure and regained his focus, he saw a monster, tree puppet soldier howling as it rushed towards him. Help! Save me! Unfortunately, at this moment, everyone was in a bitter battle and had no time to pay attention to him. Moreover, there was no longer a need to deal with the backlash of the monster race bloodline. Young Master Sun was useless, so who would care about him? Whoosh, whoosh. A large number of branches whizzed down, enough to crush a small mountain. If nothing unexpected happened, young Master Sun would be turned into a pile of minced meat in the next instant. My life is over. Suddenly, Sun Zifu felt a great force. He felt his, but instantly split into 18 pieces. His entire body was sent flying, barely dodging the falling branches. Tears instantly flowed down her face. Of course, it was because of the pain. However, she quickly realized that she had saved her life. Thus, tears of joy came from the narrow escape from death. In particular, when Sun Zifu saw the person who had saved him, his tears flowed even more freely. Brother Sunbin, I knew that you were a good person and would not abandon me. Qin Yu's face was gloomy. He punched the monster tree puppet soldier to pieces and borrowed the momentum to fall back to the ground. He didn't know that he had been given a good guy card. Brother Yao! Young Master Sun's eyes were brimming with tears. Don't say anything else. I'll remember your kindness in my heart. Qin Yu reached out a hand and pulled him up. If you have a chance later, run away. Junior Master Sun was startled. In this sort of situation, how could he possibly have a chance to escape? But Brother Yao Bin's words warmed his heart. He nodded vigorously, thinking that if he didn't die this time, he would chop off the chicken's head and drink the blood wine. He would kowtow to Brother Yao Bin and become sworn brothers. Qin, you didn't know what Zhao Qianyuan was thinking. His complexion became increasingly ugly. Although the current situation was a mess, he could clearly see that whether it was the demonized cultivators or the monster tree puppets, the ones who were truly fighting against them were him and Zhao Qianyuan. To put it simply, everyone, including Sun Zifu, was caught in the crossfire and suffered along the way. He looked up, his eyes meeting Zhao Qianyuan's in the distance. With just a glance, he knew that this chosen pride of heaven had also discovered the current situation. Hunting, and in the end he became the chosen target. Qin, you couldn't help but curse inwardly. People were finally starting to die. Li Mingxian activated the 100-sword boat, causing its power to erupt to the extreme. Its size shrunk to a third of the size of a normal flying sword, and its whistling sword intent soared into the sky. Its baleful aura was so dense that it condensed into a black mist. Kill! With a roar, the 100-swords boat pierced through space. The body of a demonic cultivator on the other side stiffened. In the next moment, it exploded into pieces, and all the flesh and blood were minced into a bloody mist by the terrifying sword light. However, just as he killed someone with a single sword strike, his strength was severely depleted, and it was difficult for him to replenish it in a short period of time. Suddenly, the ground exploded. A cluster of crimson tree roots intertwined with each other, forming something like a tentacle. It whizzed over and tore open his chest. Confusion flashed in Li Mingxuan's eyes. He struggled to turn his head and discovered that Mu Qingwan, who should have been guarding behind him, was now standing together with Shou Fenghuang. Ah! With a roar of resentment or regret, Li Mingxuan's body was entangled by the roots and pulled deep into the ground. After that, he was never able to walk out from the ground again. Dong Hanju's eyes were blood red and a cruel aura tumbled around him. The black iron staff in his hands drew out a series of afterimages in the air. Wherever it swept through, space cracked. Whether it was the monster tree puppets or the demonic cultivators, anything that approached was instantly sent flying away. Bones were broken and tendons snapped. Powder flew into the air, but his complexion became increasingly pale. The boiling blood in his body was constantly evaporating as it wildly flowed out. He couldn't last much longer. He had to escape, otherwise he would eventually become a skeleton here. Suddenly, Dong Hanju's field of vision darkened. It was like he had been pulled into endless darkness. The aura of death arrived. He roared out loud and swept out the black iron staff in his hands. Puff! He hit. But before any joy could rise in his heart, it was frozen by a terrifying cold. An icy palm tore open his chest and forcefully grasped. But the place where his heart should have been was now empty. Thus, this grasp didn't cause any fatal damage to him. The darkness in front of him rapidly dispersed. Dong Hanju saw a demonic woman. Her chest and abdomen had been broken apart by the black iron staff and had fallen to the ground not too far away. Half of her body was severed, and her heart, liver, spleen, and lungs hung there. Her crimson eyes were filled with a crazy killing intent as she tried to pull out the arm that was tightly bound by his flesh and blood. At this moment, Even someone as cruel and tyrannical as Dong Hanju felt a chill run down his spine. His lips twitched, and he smashed her head to pieces without hesitation. He pulled out the arm from his chest and tossed the broken corpse aside. Dong Hanju opened his mouth, and a common-looking bead flew out. The Dong family's Qilin child was born with a bead in his mouth. Dong Hanju's name came from this bead. Countless people had speculated about the might this bead possessed. There were countless rumors, but no one had ever seen it with their own eyes. Today was the first time it had been exposed to the public. On the surface of this bead, a multicolored halo of light flashed. When the 7 colors gathered together, a boundless aura erupted from within. Space shattered, revealing a pitch-black void. Like a great mouth, it swallowed up Dong Hanju. In the next moment, the void restored itself. Dong Hanju had disappeared without a trace. The corners of Su Guzi's eyes twitched. He had seen Dong Hanju escape with his own eyes. If he said he wasn't envious, he would be lying to himself. But right now, jealousy would only make him die faster. He suppressed these thoughts and turned around. Zhou Fenghuang, Mu Qingwan, I can lay down an array formation to bring the 3 of us away. But I need you two to buy me some time. Okay. Fellow Taoist Su, please hurry. Zhou Fenghuang and Mu Qingwan nodded without hesitation. The 2 of them joined forces to sprinkle out a sea of fire. Black and blue flames wove together, covering the 3 of them. Su Guzi turned and hurriedly laid down the array formation. His hands constantly formed law seals, forming countless runes that fused into the depths of the earth. His eyes flashed with a cold light. That's right, he had grasped the secret array formation and could borrow its power to tear open space. But the power of the secret array formation could at most send a single person away. He lifted a hand and pointed between his eyebrows. A golden light appeared and shot into the array formation, completing the arrangement of the secret array formation. But Su Guzi's hand seals didn't stop at all. He casually stepped forwards. As long as he entered the secret array formation, he could instantly activate it. But just as he was about to step into the secret array formation, a terrifying scorching aura gushed out from underground, drilling into his body. Su Guzi froze. The joy in his eyes turned to despair. In the next moment, a scorching aura erupted from within his body, smashing apart the insides of his body. Bang! Su Guzi's body exploded. Only his head remained intact. Zhou Fenghuang and Mu Qingwan drew back their hands at the same time. Their complexions didn't change at all, as if the one who attacked wasn't them. Su Guzi's lips moved, his voice weak and shrill. The secret array formation can only send one person away. Ha ha ha! Only one person. He wanted to see these 2 vicious women panic and kill each other. He wanted to see neither of them leave alive. But Su Guzi was destined to be disappointed. Zhou Fenghuang and Mu Qingwan's complexions didn't change at all because of his words. Their eyes flashed with ridicule. They stepped forwards at the same time and fused together. This was a true fusion. She became a woman that was different from the 2 of them, but also similar in many ways. She said in a soft voice, "Thank you, fellow Taoist Su. One person is enough." As soon as she stepped in, the secret array formation was stirred up. Layers upon layers of array formation runes appeared, submerging her like waves. "No!" Su Guzi screamed. His voice came to a screeching halt. His 2 eyeballs were the first to be unable to withstand it. They bulged outwards, burst open, and then exploded into pieces. Black and blue flames flashed, burning everything to ashes. Sun Zifu had seen Zhou Fenghuang and Mu Qingwan combine as one to kill Su Guzi. His eyes widened and his face was a mess. This world, he really couldn't understand it. Before he could regain his composure, he was ruthlessly tossed away. Qin Yu's icy voice echoed in his ears. "Whether you live or die, that will depend on your own luck." Whoosh! Young Master Sun held away. Qin Yu drew back his hand. His expression was dignified. He no longer had the energy to care for son, Zifu. What followed was a moment of life and death. He had to bring out his greatest strength. Bang! The ground fiercely collapsed. Qin Yu stormed forwards. He lifted a hand and pressed forwards. Space twisted and the monster tree puppet general wildly struggled, but it couldn't change its fate of being crushed to pieces. He looked up and his eyes met with Zhao Qinyuan's. Without any discussion, the two instantly understood each other's intentions. Kill! With a loud shout, Zhao Qinyuan ruthlessly thrust the dragon spear in his hands into the earth. In the next moment, the ground tumbled like boiling water. Countless dragon spear phantoms tore through the earth and flew out. Every spear phantom was like an arrow leaving a bow. They held through space and locked onto their target. Bang, bang, loud explosions shook the heavens and earth. Each sound represented the death of a monster tree puppet. Zhao Qinyuan held his dragon spear motionlessly, but his terrifying slaughter had already arrived like a tide. Qin Yu's eyes erupted with brilliance. What a good Zhao Qinyuan! When he didn't move, he was like a mountain, but when he moved, the heavens seemed to collapse. He lifted a hand, and his 5 fingers bent backwards like he was drawing a bow. Silver white light erupted, blinding to the eye. 5-element mountain, the path of metal. Whoosh! Silver white light held out, its speed inconceivable. Wherever it passed, the monster tree puppets would explode, torn to pieces by the slaughter strength. In several breaths of time, the terrifying tide of monster tree puppets had been destroyed by the 2 of them. But now the greatest threats were the 3 cultivators that had been demonized. Lung Feng, Han Cheng, and the woman who had awakened the cursed bloodline. These 3 people were tyrannical in strength, and after becoming demonized, they were even more terrifying. Being locked onto by their blood-red eyes made one feel as if they had fallen into an endless hell of blood. With loud howls, Lung Feng and Han Cheng hurtled towards Zhao Qianyuan. Although the dragon spear phantoms constantly struck them away, they couldn't stop them from approaching. The woman with the cursed bloodline chose Qin Yu. After becoming demonized, she floated in the air like a ghost. A dark gray fog constantly tumbled around her. This was the manifestation of the terrifying cursed strength. Ah! Her blood-red eyes stared at Qin Yu, and she screamed out loud. Her originally beautiful face was now covered with scales, making her seem even more fierce and fierce. Qin Yu's heart shrank. In the next moment, the cosmic sea-cross bell shook within his soul space. Even so, his soul still felt numb and showed signs of collapse. This woman, besides the cursed bloodline, she actually had such a terrifying soul attack technique. Whoosh! The cursed fog held forwards like a tide. If Qin Yu's soul was injured, then his body would be stiff and he would find it hard to respond. But now he stepped forwards and avoided the fog attack. Qin Yu's figure was like a bolt of lightning as he hurtled towards the demonic woman. As long as he could kill her, the power of the curse would naturally disperse. Qin Yu's eyes were icy cold. He was confident that as long as he was hit, the demonic woman would undoubtedly die. But at this time a wooden spear stabbed out. Qin Yu had no choice but to draw back his fist in defense. He lifted his hand and thrust out. The wooden spear broke apart. The monster with succubus general roared out in pain, but it didn't retreat. It continued to take several steps forwards, and all of its branches spread out, covering Qin Yu like a net that covered the skies. The monster with succubus general's body completely disintegrated, turning into twisting branches. These branches wound around Qin Yu layer after layer, wildly wriggling and contracting like countless snakes teaming up to kill their prey. Bang, bang. A deep rumbling sound erupted. The layers of branches violently trembled, and the wriggling became increasingly slow. Finally, with a loud bang, it was forcefully blown apart. Qin Yu strode forwards. The dark curse fog had already been taken back. The demonic woman didn't seem to have lost her sanity. She was nearly killed in a single exchange, causing her to be incomparably angry. With a scream, the curse fog wildly gathered, wrapping around her and condensing into a giant snake. Its eyes were blood red. These were the eyes of the demonic woman. The snake hissed and swept its tail outwards as it rushed forwards. Although this snake was condensed from the power of the curse, it had some unknown secret technique that made it seem as if it were a living being. The aura it emitted was even more astonishing. Qin, you didn't dare to face it head-on. Once the two sides touched, he feared the pervasive power of the curse would invade his body. The little blue lamp was immune to poison, but as for curses, in truth, the power of curses was one of the most terrifying and bizarre powers in the world. He didn't dare to take any risks. However, since it was condensed from the curse fog, perhaps this snake could be regarded as some sort of supernatural power. And Qin Yu just happened to have a method that could break through the power of supernatural powers. He lifted a hand and pointed forwards. Winds and clouds howled as a finger appeared out of thin air. Between the heavens and earth, a vast strength gathered. Perhaps because this small world was filled with demonic power, but the finger that condensed was actually pitch black in color. Qin Yu hesitated. The change in the boundless blue finger was unexpected, but in the current situation it was too late to stop. A cold light flashed in his eyes. The boundless blue finger held forwards. The demonic woman's mind was being controlled by slaughter. Even if she still had a trace of consciousness, it was only instinct. The cursed snake didn't dodge. It collided with the power of this finger. The boundless blue finger shattered. But what was strange was that the black fingerprints remained intact, as if they were the black shadow of the finger. The cursed snake didn't slow down at all. It smashed apart the black fingerprints. Qin Yu frowned, a bit of disappointment in his eyes. But at this time, the cursed snake suddenly cried out in pain. Black spots began to appear on the surface of its body, as if they were rotting boils. Ah! With a pained scream, the cursed snake collapsed, revealing the female cultivator inside. The black scales on her body had begun to rot away, and her flesh was a mess. Chapter 511. The dragon spear in Zhao Qinyuan's hand drew a cold arc through the air as it stabbed into Han Sheng's chest. A destructive strength erupted from the spear point, instantly sweeping through his entire body. Han Sheng's grasping fingers were only several inches away from Zhao Qinyuan, but he couldn't move any further. The dragon's spear suddenly vanished from sight. Han Sheng's corpse fell backwards. Before it even hit the ground, it broke apart, turning into powder that sprinkled over the earth. At the same time, the other Zhao Qianyuan, facing Lung Feng, lifted a hand and thrust forwards. A dragon's spear appeared in his hand. The spear point trembled slightly, completely ignoring Lung Feng's powerful defenses. It pierced through between his eyebrows, and red and white matter shot outwards. The two Zhao Qinyuans burst like bubbles, simultaneously vanishing from sight. Then his figure reappeared where he originally stood. He stabbed the dragon's spear into the earth, as if he hadn't moved at all from the very start. But after becoming demonic, Lung Feng and Han Sheng, who had become even more terrifying, had died to his hands. Shua! Raising his spear, Zhao Qianyuan looked up. His eyes became deep, as if they could contain the entire starry skies. He lifted his spear and pointed it at the ancient tree monster. His aura slowly rose, like a great beast awakening from its slumber. The dragon's spear in his hand turned pure gold, as if cast from gold. Dragon scales appeared on the spear shaft, the tip becoming a dragon's head and the spear point becoming a dragon's fang. In the next moment, a resonant dragon's cry shook the heavens and earth. A great golden dragon flew out from Zhao Qinyuan's body, soaring into the skies. At this moment, Zhao Qinyuan's aura reached its strongest point. Wherever his spear pointed, the world became like a mirror. Countless cracks appeared. Wherever it passed, countless tree monster puppets froze in place. Then, Like the wind, they turned into powder. Within the ancient tree monster, there was a wooden house. The sage had a dignified expression. The praise in his eyes had disappeared, replaced by a bit of dread. Before this, he had always regarded Zhao Qianyuan as a rising star of the demonic path. No matter how amazing his talent was, it would still take a period of time for him to truly grow. But now, the sage actually felt a threat from him. Even if it was only the faintest bit, it was still unimaginable. It had to be known that as the sage of the monster race, he was the one who guided his people forward. Although he wasn't the strongest, he had the confidence to not fear anyone. What made him feel threatened was that Zhao Qianyuan already had the ability to harm him. If he didn't personally feel this, he would have never believed it. That junior actually managed to comprehend the true essence of the world. Sage's eyes turned icy cold. He even rejoiced that he had run into Zhao Qianyuan today. Otherwise, if he was allowed to continue growing, it wouldn't be too long before the monster race gained another terrifying enemy. Fortunately, he was going to die here today. Dressed in a white dress, Qin Yan was as elegant as a fairy in the wind. Her beautiful brows were slightly furrowed and her eyes were filled with surprise. He is indeed worthy of being the prince of the demonic path. He has the potential to become a peerless genius that can suppress the world. He is far stronger than I imagined. She was silent for a moment, and there was a look of pity in her eyes. However, the corners of her mouth were slightly raised, and her smile was incomparably beautiful, because before long, everything that this proud son of heaven possessed would belong to her. Perhaps she wouldn't be able to inherit everything, but the portion she would receive would be enough for her to advance. At that time, her future would be even brighter, and no one would be able to compare to her. Perhaps she could achieve an unprecedented realm in the monster race, becoming the first person to truly leave the world. Qin Yu's eyes were dignified, and he sighed inwardly. Although he had made many guesses, Zhao Qianyuan's strength still surpassed his expectations. If they were to engage in a life or death struggle, just what were his chances of victory? Qin Yu shook his head, suppressing these untimely thoughts. If they couldn't escape today, then the two of them would be buried here. Zhao Qianyuan had already erupted with his greatest strength without reservation. How could he remain silent? He stepped forwards. Qin Yu's black robes puffed up and his black hair surged behind him. His aura was like an erupting volcano, climbing and climbing without end. 5-element nascent souls, superimposing their combat strength. 5-element mountains, secret art. Sovereign level demon body. Blue sea 3rd level, 5th level, 7th level, 9th level. It still wasn't enough. Qin Yu roared out, "Power of the burning heavens! Burning blood, burning magic, burning life." Without any scruples, he instantly erupted with the strength bestowed upon him by the demonic path's sacrificial altar. Blue sea 10th level, peak blue sea, perfection blue sea. Qin Yu's aura seemed to break through some sort of limit. At this moment, he felt as if he were one with the world. Zhao Qianyuan's pupils shrank for a moment before he composed himself. He hadn't been wrong. This Yao Bin, he didn't have full confidence he could defeat him. But at this time, the stronger he was the better. If the two of them joined forces, there was a chance they could fight. If he could cut down the ancient tree monster. His eyes blazed with monstrous fighting spirit. The sage gently shivered. He slowly looked up, his eyes red with anger. How unfair is this world! The demonic path has given birth to Zhao Qianyuan, someone who already has the potential to dominate the world, and yet the heavens want to bestow upon them a second unsurpassed proud son of heaven. Since ancient times, my monster race has experienced countless tribulations and catastrophes. Countless races have nearly been exterminated, and it is only by hiding in the lands of extreme cold that we are able to survive. If my race could also have such a proud son of heaven, we wouldn't have fallen to such a state. I hate this world. I hate this world for favoring me, I hate this world for treating my monster race so harshly. Since the world is heartless, the monster race can only struggle for their own lives. These two proud sons of heaven of the demonic path must die today. I will use them as sacrifices to forge the foundation of my monster race for all eternity. Resentful roars echoed through the wooden house. Blue Cloud silently laughed. She never thought that the heavens would treat her so generously. Not only did they send her Zhao Qianyuan, but they also sent her another peerless, proud son of heaven. If she could seize the good fortune of these two, her eyes brightened. She lifted a hand and touched the lotus flower between her eyebrows, sending a message to the sage. No matter what, she had to keep these two people here. Between the canopy of trees, within the embryo, where layers of branches wove together, the handsome youth revealed a hint of excitement. To break through the barrier of yin and yang and defy the will of the heavens and earth. Even if he had made countless preparations and accumulations, he still didn't dare to be careless. If he was the slightest bit careless, his countless years of painstaking planning would all go down the drain. But now that these two people had appeared, they were the best tonic for him. His chances of success today were originally only 50%, but now he had an 80% chance. How could he not be overjoyed? As for the cultivators that had fallen into depravity, and the monster tree puppets being unable to stop them at all, this resurrected monster race great emperor didn't care about this at all. This was because he wanted to personally suppress these two people and plunder all of their strength for his own use. The handsome youth's eyes flashed with ridicule. Once they discovered that he could mobilize a portion of their strength, just what sort of expressions would they have? Just thinking about it left him filled with anticipation. Bang! In the crown of the tree, tens of thousands of branches slowly bloomed like a flower bud. The handsome youth, who was lying flat on the ground, slowly stood up. Atop his naked body, a magnificent robe appeared from thin air. At the same time, a vast and majestic aura swept out in all directions like a tide. Wherever I go, I am king. My thoughts change, the heavens collapse, the earth crumble. My will is the will of the heavens. This was a kind of indescribable power and terror. The two of you, are you willing to sacrifice yourself for me? His voice was simple and ancient. Every syllable contained a transcendent pressure, as if a million mountains were falling down, pressing down on one's mind and causing one to instinctively bow their heads. If it were any other cultivator, they feared they would have fallen into a trance upon hearing these words. But the two people standing in front of him today were the most outstanding juniors of the demonic path. Even in their peak state, the words of the monster race great emperor might not have been able to shake their minds, much less now that they were in a weakened state of breaking through yin and yang. Whether it was Zhao, Qianyuan, or Qinyu, their complexions only changed for a moment before they composed themselves. Their auras tumbled endlessly, becoming much stronger than before. The handsome youth had no expression, as if he didn't care about this at all. Since you are not willing to sacrifice yourself, then I will personally take action and strip away everything you have obtained in your lives. He lifted a hand and grasped forwards. Qin Yu's complexion changed. At this moment, he felt as if he had been isolated from the world, without any connection to the outside world. Then, an invisible aura arrived. It was like eternal ice, invading his body and chilling his flesh and bones. He couldn't resist it. In fact, he couldn't even find a way to resist this strength. Qin, you could clearly feel the strength within his body fading away. Like a water bag that had been punctured, he began to gradually dry up and become empty. This strength wasn't just magic power, but also soul aura, supernatural powers, and even his blood vitality. At this moment, Qin Yu was like an ice sculpture. He was powerless to resist, no matter how he tried to kill him. The little blue lamp, the cosmic sea cross bell, the purple moon, the blue sun and his Dantian sea. All of his cards had been completely lost. After a brief moment of panic, Qin Yu determined that he could only rely on himself. If he didn't resist, he would soon lose everything and die. Calm down. Calm down. The ancient tree monster was once the monster race great emperor. Even at its peak, it wasn't simple for it to easily take away everything from a blue sea cultivator. Right now, all of my strength has been frozen, and I can't summon anything. The only thing I can rely on is my will. Qin Yu's eyes brightened as if he had grasped onto some key point. Yes, it is my will. My strength is what I obtained when I was humble and low. I climbed up step by step, accumulating it bit by bit. It is what I rely on, and it is also the reflection of my life struggles. Every bit of this strength contains my indelible mark. No one can take it away from me, because my strength can only be controlled by me. At this moment, Qin Yu's mind and will were highly concentrated. There was a loud explosion in his mind, as if some sort of transformation had occurred. Then he discovered that there was an inexplicable connection between him and the strength that had been taken away. Even if they were separated by mountains and rivers, he still couldn't sever this connection. The cold chill in his body faded away like a tide. His state of isolation from the world was immediately broken. Qin Yu took a deep breath. All of the strength that flew out from his body returned at an even faster speed, instantly fusing together. It became more mellow, more tenacious, more unbreakable. Bang! A soaring aura erupted. It was endlessly sharp and overbearing, as if even the heavens and earth could be instantly torn apart. Zhao Qianyuan grasped the dragon spear, his eyes incomparably bright. He stared straight ahead, locking onto the crown of the tree and the handsome youth floating in the air. There was nothing else. Kill! With a loud shout, the dragon's spear thrust forwards. This thrust was extremely slow, but the handsome youth's eyes revealed a bit of surprise. He lifted a hand and 2 fingers pressed forwards. The dazzling golden spear point fell between his fingers. It was incomparably sharp, able to pierce through 1,000 mountains and rivers. But between these 2 white fingers, it couldn't move forward even half an inch. The handsome youth smiled. You are very strong. If you were given enough time, your achievements might even surpass mine. Unfortunately, your innate destiny is lacking and you will perish today. Zhao Qianyuan grasped the end of the dragon spear. His eyes shined like 2 burning stars. Roar! Above his head, a great golden dragon coiled around him. It swooped down from the heavens and instantly fused into the dragon spear. As if a soul had been injected into a body, the aura emitted by the dragon spear wildly rose. The dazzling golden light turned into blazing flames. Zhao Qianyuan spat out a mouthful of blood, which fell onto the dragon spear. The golden flames suddenly took on a blood-red hue, adding a thick killing intent to their majesty. The handsome youth's 2 fingers trembled. His eyebrows arched up in surprise. He saw that where his fingers touched the dragon spear, they were scorched black. It had to be known that his mortal body was condensed from the essence of his main body and fused with a tyrannical, demonic strength. Although it hadn't fully matured yet, it was still indestructible. To be able to injure his mortal body, the handsome youth's eyes suddenly turned white, without the least bit of impurities in them. They shined with a bleak and cold, deathly stillness. As his eyes fell on Zhao Qianyuan, his eyebrows moved. Then, as his eyes fell on the dragon's spear, they finally turned into praise. 2 souls that don't belong to this world. One has its own mortal body, and the other has become a treasure, primordial spirit. Yet they can perfectly fuse together. I am really curious. Where do you come from, and how were you able to accomplish this? The handsome youth smiled. I am even more interested in the 2 of you, because I have discovered that you might be hiding some secrets that I would like to know. Then, please stay behind and become a part of me. For the sake of my true return, contribute all of your strength. He loosened his fingers. As the dragon's spear hurled towards him, he grabbed it and forcefully pulled it back. But this pull caused the handsome youth's smile to stiffen. This was because the dragon's spear in his hand had vanished into nothingness. It was like it was only a projection. After exhausting all of its strength, it would naturally vanish. He looked up, his eyes as cold as lightning. A terrifying aura instantly descended, locking down the surrounding space. Zhao Qinyuan's expression didn't change. He touched his chest and bowed. Then he turned to Qinyu and said, "Brother Yao, I am very sorry. You and I do not have the strength to kill the monster emperor. I can only take my leave first." As he spoke, his figure vanished, turning into wisps of mist that vanished along with the dragon's spear. The handsome youth's complexion paled. He roared out loud. An entire ancient tree monster violently trembled. The earth crazily tumbled and countless roots tore through the earth, wildly lashing out, causing cracks to appear in space. But this action didn't force out Zhao Qinyuan's figure. This demonic path scion had smoothly concealed himself from everyone and escaped far away. As one thought about how the one they faced now was the resurrected monster race, Great Emperor, one couldn't help but cheer for Zhao Qinyuan's methods. But at this time, Qinyu had no thoughts of cheering. His lips moved, and he began to curse out loud. Chapter 512. As great hero Qin bitterly smiled in his heart, the enraged monster race, Great Emperor, calmed down. The ancient tree monster fell silent as well, leaving the entire world silent. But it was far too quiet. The entire world was like a frozen iceberg without the slightest fluctuation. An invisible pressure fell upon the soul, causing one to instinctively tremble. The monster race, Great Emperor, suddenly smiled. Indeed, every generation has its own geniuses. I have underestimated today's juniors, but where can you run to? Once I escape, even if I have to flee to the depths of the Yellow Springs, I will find you and tear you to shreds. He turned around. And are you also thinking of how to escape? But I will not make the same mistake a second time. Let's end this. Every branch of the ancient tree monster erupted with light. They shot into the skies, weaving together into a world phantom, like a vast starry sky slowly descending. Although the speed wasn't fast, wherever the world phantom covered, all living things, all laws, were imprisoned by the world's strength. Qinyu stiffened, unable to move at all. He resisted the urge to summon the little blue lamp and break through the world imprisonment, allowing the world's strength to suppress him and pull him towards the monster race, Great Emperor. The little blue lamps might defy the heavens. Even if the monster emperor attacked and summoned a world phantom, he was confident that the little blue lamp would be able to break it. But what would happen after he broke through the world phantom? Facing the monster emperor, he was powerless to resist. If Undying woke up, he might be able to escape. But right now, he could only rely on himself. If he couldn't escape, and if he couldn't fight, then he could only wait for a chance. Qin, you only had one chance to use his trump card. If he failed, then he would fall into a hopeless situation. So Qinyu chose to wait. In the worst-case scenario, he still had the 9-realm Holy Land Saint Sun token. Although he didn't know whether or not it could stop the resurrected monster emperor. If things didn't go well, he could hide inside for a period of time. The connection between the inside and outside of the small world had inevitably been severed. Perhaps the outside world was already aware of this and was trying to find a way to forcefully open the small world. As long as he could persist until the demonic path powerhouses arrived, there would naturally be someone to deal with the monster race Great Emperor, and he would be able to preserve his life. It was because of this that Qinyu was able to barely maintain his calm in this hopeless situation. If he were to truly be in a hopeless situation, then no matter how tenacious his will was, he would still fall into chaos and recklessly try to escape. Those who had never experienced it would never be able to imagine the terror of life and death. The monster race, Great Emperor faintly said, "What I want is a junior that escapes. Although you are strong, your usefulness cannot be compared with his. Since things are destined to be like this, then I have no choice but to sacrifice you." He paused for a moment. "I hope that you can contribute some of your strength to help me break through yin and yang." The disdain in his tone, if it weren't for the fact that the scene wasn't right, Qin Yu really wanted to roll his eyes at him. "Bastard, you want to kill me, but you still think I'm useless. You're a typical case of killing a pig and blaming it for being skinny." Flustered and exasperated, Zhang Xian didn't realize that this analogy wasn't suitable at all. The monster race great emperor opened his mouth, and an extremely terrifying aura instantly descended. Whether it was Qin Yu's mortal body or soul, he was completely suppressed. The calm and indifferent monster race great emperor's eyes suddenly flashed with ecstasy. As he stared at Qin Yu, his eyes turned burning hot. Zhao Qianyuan was very good. Moreover, there were 2 foreign souls in his body. If he could swallow them, it would indeed be greatly beneficial to him. But what no one knew was that from the moment Qin Yu appeared, the monster race great emperor's attention had shifted to him. This was because within Qin Yu's body, there were several auras that caused the monster race great emperor's soul to tremble. Some were incomparably sweet, some were unfathomably cryptic, some were incomparably dangerous. But no matter which one it was, all of them were able to stimulate the deepest greed in the monster race great emperor's heart. Yes, from the very start, the monster race great emperor had been putting on an act. When Zhao Qianyuan ran away, he was indeed incomparably angry, but the majority of what he displayed was an act. As long as Qin Yu didn't run away, everything was fine. As he thought, this deeply hidden boy might have harbored thoughts of killing him and seizing everything he had, so he had been patiently restraining himself from erupting. Originally, the monster race great emperor was worried that Qin Yu wouldn't be able to restrain himself and would go all out against him. At that time, he didn't have full confidence that he would be able to capture this boy. It wasn't that he wasn't confident in his own strength, but that the several auras within Qin Yu's body left him feeling a great deal of dread. But now, there was no need to worry about anything. When the monster race great emperor opened his mouth, Qin Yu had already been thoroughly suppressed. This junior had been patiently waiting for the best time to attack. But now, there really wasn't any need to worry about this. This was because he had already lost his chance to attack. He was now nothing more than a fish on the chopping block, waiting to be slaughtered. The monster race great emperor's heart was filled with excitement and ecstasy. He never imagined that his hypocritical deal with the sage would finally catch such a big fish. He would swallow Qin Yu and obtain the auras within his body. Although the monster race great emperor didn't know just what those auras were, there was one thing he could be sure of. Today, not only would he smoothly return, but he would also be able to take a step further from the highest pole, perhaps even more. Extreme sorrow brings bliss. Indeed, extreme sorrow brings bliss. He, the monster race great emperor, would not only be resurrected, but he would also ascend to the peak of the world and take back everything he lost in the past with interest. Of course, all of this was in the future. Right now, the most important thing was to completely eat up Qin Yu, leaving nothing behind. His original body was the ancient tree monster, and he could plunder all the strength from the flesh and blood of others. It had been a long time since the monster race great emperor had been so eager to eat up a life form. As for whether or not Qin Yu could resist, the monster race great emperor had absolute confidence in this. This was because it wasn't as simple as just opening his mouth. At this time, all of his strength had erupted and he had displayed his complete might. Whether it was his soul, his body, or even his mind and will, everything was in a sealed state. The current Qin Yu wasn't even able to think. He could only obediently allow himself to be swallowed up. As the monster race great emperor looked at Qin Yu, who was about to enter his mouth, and thought of his monstrous harvest, he couldn't help but praise his own wisdom 108 times. If he didn't beat him at his own game, wanting to capture Qin Yu wouldn't have been easy at all. He was far too smart. In fact, the monster race great emperor Qi Huer was indeed careful. He had made preparations that even a calamity immortal would be suppressed if they weren't prepared. But in front of Chinyu, an accident occurred. This was because, from the very start, he hadn't lost the ability to think. Since he could think, he could naturally resist. Within his soul space, golden lines appeared on the surface of the cosmic Seacross bell. Although the bell itself was damaged in many places, it still emitted an incomparably tyrannical aura. Bang! The cosmic Seacross bell suddenly trembled. An impact visible to the naked eye erupted. It was like a great wave that instantly swept through the soul space. A shattering sound that only the soul could hear entered Xiao Chen's ears. It was like a frozen lake had been brutally and unreasonably smashed by a sledgehammer. The monster race, Great Emperor, stuffily coughed. His eyes widened and shock filled his handsome face. Because his soul had suffered a backlash, his movements paused. But this brief pause gave Chinyu a chance to fight for his life. Within his soul space, the purple moon began to shine with a brilliant light. That pure purple radiance was like flowing water. At almost the same time, the blue sun within his Dantian sea erupted with a blinding light, as if it were a true blue sun. Within his soul space, the phantom of a blue sun appeared beside the purple moon. Within his Dantian sea, beside the blue sun, the projection of the purple moon appeared. At this moment, within Chinyu's body, it was like two suns and two moons had appeared, illuminating his soul and igniting his Dantian sea. Chinyu's thoughts were incomparably clear, as if he had abandoned all emotions. But what was completely different was the terrifying strength rampaging within his Dantian sea. They loudly rushed out, like tongues of fire on an autumn grassland. After a single spark fell, it became an unextinguishable wildfire. His imprisoned mortal body felt an intense burning sensation, as if he were placed in a pale furnace and the flames were crazily forging him. Although it was excruciatingly painful, in this painful process his mortal body was actually liberated. Chinyu's skin turned crimson red and his blood vessels swelled up. He could hear the sound of his blood rapidly flowing through his veins. He lifted his right hand, and the shadow of the rules appeared on his index finger. Because he was so close to the monster race, Great Emperor, he could easily reach behind his head. His index finger hooked onto the umbilical cord that connected the monster race, Great Emperor's mortal body to the ancient tree monster. Chin, you could clearly see the monster race, Great Emperor's eyes widen in shock and anger. It was clear that the monster race, Great Emperor, still hadn't reacted. How had he suddenly fallen to such a degree? He realized that he had to stop Chinyu no matter what. But now that Chinyu had broken free from his shackles, all of the backlash would fall upon him. The monster race, Great Emperor's soul froze, and his body stiffened. Even if he only needed a short period of time to recover, Chinyu wouldn't wait for him. He exerted force with his index finger. He could feel a tough resistance, but as he increased his strength, this resistance reached its strongest point before suddenly collapsing. Pain, despair, hatred, unwillingness. This single roar transmitted far too much information. With a deep and loud explosion, Chinyu was like a moth that was sent flying away. His chest slightly caved in, and with a loud crackling sound, countless bones broke. He crashed into the ground like a plow, drilling deep into the earth and causing billowing waves of dirt and stone to fly off to both sides. Chi-Hu had recovered. As he said before, he only needed a short period of time to catch his breath, and his strength would once again be able to easily roll over Chinyu. But he didn't have the chance to attack again. His eyes stubbornly stared at Chinyu. Chi-Hu wanted to lift his hand, but halfway through, he slumped back down. His mouth moved. Then, countless tiny cracks suddenly appeared on the surface of this extremely intelligent monster race, Great Emperor's mortal body. It looked like a heated terracotta was suddenly doused with cold water, causing it to explode. There was no explosion. Otherwise, with the monster race Great Emperor's strength, the self-destruction of his mortal body was enough to raise the surrounding area for 1,000 miles to the ground and drag the severely wounded Chinyu down with him. I will return. After leaving behind these final words, his cracked, mortal body broke apart bit by bit. Then these pieces of flesh and blood melted into a puddle of goo like wax under high temperatures. Perhaps this wasn't an appropriate description, because the monster race Great Emperor's mortal body wasn't made of true flesh and blood, but was bred from absorbing the essence of the ancient tree monster's strength. This puddle of goo didn't smell of blood at all. It was like a flowing crystal that shined with a dazzling halo. When his gaze landed, it even made one instinctively swallow a mouthful of saliva and want to pounce on him. This was because this was the demon blood crystal that Su Guzi and the others had been desperately searching for. But compared to a simple demon blood crystal, it contained the boundless vitality of the ancient tree monster. Space suddenly collapsed inward, revealing a pitch-black hole. An extreme Yin chill was released from within, as if it were connected to the underworld. A dim soul flew out from the demon blood crystal. It was pulled into the black hole, and the space around it wriggled until everything returned to tranquility. It was only at this time that Chinyu, who was lying in the mud with his back against a broken boulder, let out a deep breath. He violently coughed, blood splashing out from his nose and mouth. The monster race Great Emperor Qi, whose resurrection journey had finally ended in complete failure. The ancient tree monster's verdant crown instantly withered and turned yellow. Countless leaves fell down like the rain of the century. The broken umbilical cord wriggled, wanting to insert itself into the demon blood crystal. Unfortunately, at this time, it was already powerless to change its own fate. Within the ancient tree monster's treehouse, the silent sage let out a long breath. Qi, whose strength and endurance had also surpassed his expectations. Unfortunately, this monster race Great Emperor's luck was far too bad. He had actually failed miserably in such an easy task. After struggling for countless years, he had finally been ruined by a nameless junior. From the very start, the sage had never thought of truly helping Qi, resurrect. A monster race Great Emperor that had been contaminated with demonic energy was no longer a pure monster. But as he witnessed this result, he still sighed. Luckily, the one to obtain everything was destined to be someone from the monster race. Thus, Qi-Hu'er's death wasn't in vain. The demonic Path Junior that killed him would be buried with him, taking revenge for the Great Emperor. After he died again, he would be able to obtain some comfort. Lifting a hand, the sage pressed it against the treehouse. Boundless strength instantly poured in, like an invisible hand gripping the ancient tree monster's throat. How can you take back what you spat out? You have already died, so why are you so attached to the world of the living? Why are you so reluctant to leave? Blue Cloud's lips curled up in an incomparably brilliant smile. She had already prepared herself to flee, but she never expected the result would be even better. With such a powerful, great Emperor Qi, and such a peerlessly outstanding proud son of heaven of the demonic path, obtaining everything they had was truly the most wonderful thing in the world. The lotus mark between her eyebrows shined. Blue Cloud stepped forwards, and her white dress bloomed like a pure white cloud as she floated towards the ancient tree monster. She flew past Chinyu and looked down at this severely wounded little fellow. After a moment of thought, she landed. This big sister really should thank you properly. Her voice was cold and charming, perfectly fusing together. Her eyes blazed as she looked at Chinyu. If it were another time, this big sister wouldn't mind giving you the best pleasures in the world before you die. Unfortunately, those people from the demonic path will soon arrive. This big sister doesn't have much time left. Blue Cloud gently smiled. Don't worry. In order to express my gratitude to you, Big Sister will move quickly. You won't feel any pain at all before everything ends. Before her voice fell, black vines spread out from beneath her feet and wrapped around Chinyu's body. They pierced through his skin and drilled into his flesh and blood. Blue Cloud's smile became even brighter. There were far, far too many lessons that told one not to be long-winded. Otherwise, there would be some unforeseen event that would make one unable to cry even if they wanted to. Thus, when it was time to kill someone, she would do so. Miss Blue had always been a nimble and decisive person. She certainly wouldn't make such a stupid mistake. As someone with a 10,000 poison body, a woman whose fate was to be destroyed, the reason she walked the world was to deliver death to all living beings. Thus, killing someone was simply far too simple. Blue Cloud blinked her eyes. As she looked at the faint traces of black energy that appeared on Chinyu's face, she felt a bit of regret in her heart. What a pity! Such a handsome and strong young man, then let's never meet again. Chinyu lowered his head, as if he were silently withstanding the pain of poison invading his organs. After a brief moment of astonishment, a strange look appeared in his eyes. Chapter 5:13. Chinyu knew that Blue Cloud had been hiding in the dark, waiting for a chance to take advantage of the situation and reap the benefits. At the start, this was also what he thought, but things always changed faster than he planned. The ancient tree monster had suddenly attacked, forcing him to reveal himself. Afterwards, he had fallen into a bitter battle. So even though he had killed the monster race great emperor, Chinyu couldn't help but feel excited. This was because he was well aware that these demon blood crystals wouldn't be his. He had already prepared to escape into the Saint Sun token. He only needed a single thought to do so. But Chinyu never imagined that Blue Cloud, who was as pure as a lotus on the outside but had a heart like a snake and scorpion, would actually have a 10,000 poison body. And more importantly, this little girl was now preparing to poison him to death. This made Chinyu feel as if a giant pie had fallen from the heavens. It was like he was going to strike it rich. Blue Cloud smiled. You won't feel pain right now. Rather, you will feel as if you are floating in the clouds. This sort of pleasure will become increasingly intense until it drowns out your consciousness. It is like falling asleep. Once you close your eyes, everything will be over. Her voice was gentle. You see, big sister always means what I say. You won't feel any pain at all. Chinyu's lips twitched. No, he had to endure it. He couldn't laugh. He had to appear as if he was in incomparable pain. He had to make this little girl continue to inject poison into his body. It wasn't enough right now. He lowered his head, not saying a word. His body shivered. This was the result of holding back a laugh. But in Blue Cloud's eyes, this was normal. It was just that this boy's mortal body seemed to be extremely strong. Even though so much poison had been injected into his body, he still hadn't fallen down. But this was clearly a good thing. The more powerful the mortal body, the more strength it contained. Once his mortal body and soul melted, she could pour in demon blood crystals. Then, she could let go and enjoy a delicious meal. Just thinking about it made her drool. How come it hadn't started to melt yet? Blue Cloud frowned. She suddenly felt that something wasn't right. But before she could respond, Chinyu, who had been enduring the corrosion of the poison, suddenly looked up and smiled at her. Blue Cloud's heart trembled. She felt as if her life or death had instantly slipped out of her control. Without any time to think, she began to retreat. However, she only took a step back before she was suddenly pulled back. Her eyes widened as she looked at her feet. The black vines that had spread out had unexpectedly wrapped around her body at some point in time. Moreover, on the surface of the vine's pure black surface, there was a faint blue color. Because it was extremely dim, if one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't notice it at all. What left Blue Cloud feeling a chill run down her spine was that she had already lost control of these vines. They were like shackles that completely locked her and Chinyu down. Who exactly are you? Chinyan asked in a low voice. On Chinyu's face, the black gas produced by the poison began to rapidly recede like a tide. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. If I had to describe it, then I should be considered an unqualified Oriole hunter. Qin Yun blinked. What do you mean? Qin Yu smiled. What I mean is, I was originally planning on running away, but you delivered yourself to my door, so I can only reluctantly accept you. Qin Yun bit her lips. Can you let me go? Qin Yu shook his head. I can't. He suddenly said, Was it your doing that caused those people to suddenly fall into depravity? Qin Yun was startled. She immediately smiled and nodded. That's right. It was Big Sister who gave them some pills that contain demonic power to help them restore their strength as soon as possible. Her eyes suddenly turned gray, and her smile became even more charming. Little brother, has anyone ever told you not to speak nonsense when it's time to kill someone? Otherwise, you likely won't have a good ending. The black vines that wrapped around the two suddenly turned gray. Thus, the faint blue lines became clear. Qin, you could clearly feel the poison that was injected into his body through the vines. It was clearly even more terrifying, and the scope of its damage wasn't limited to the body, but the soul. But to Qin Yu, this could be clearly expressed with a single word: useless. The smile on Qin Yun's face stiffened. This was because she discovered that Qin Yu's complexion hadn't changed at all. Impossible. The myriad poison body was born with destruction. As one walked between the heavens and earth, they would naturally absorb toxic substances. Even if they didn't cultivate, they would still become increasingly strong. Moreover, Qin Yun had been chosen by the sage a long time ago to become the new protector of her race. She had obtained countless terrifying poisons that were rarely seen in the world. These poisons entered the myriad poison body. After fusing, transforming, and mutating, they gradually formed their life poison. This was the most terrifying aspect of the myriad poison body. Their mortal body could be cultivated into the most terrifying poisons in the world. Even a transcendent calamity immortal realm existence wouldn't dare to be contaminated by it. More often than not, just a little bit of it would be enough to turn a large city into a dead zone. Qin Yun's life poison was particularly fierce. The sage once said that even a calamity immortal supreme elder wouldn't be able to escape from it. They could only rely on their cultivation to resist it, and in the end the poison would invade their soul and extinguish their will. Of course, the premise of this was that she could send the poison into the body of a calamity immortal. But this was clearly an extremely difficult task. What Qin Yun injected into Qin Yu's body was her life poison. Moreover, in order to be safe, she had injected a great deal of it. This was already a heavy loss to her. But what did she see now? Qin Yu was fine. Nothing had happened to him at all. The poison that was enough to kill 10 million people had disappeared without a trace. Qin Yun panicked. This was her greatest trump card. If she still couldn't kill Qin Yu, then the consequences, she didn't dare to think about them. Nor did she want to think about them. Die. Go die. With a loud scream, Qin Yun disregarded her own losses. She wildly poured her life poison into the vine. Faint traces of gray appeared on the ground. Then it rapidly spread outwards, like frost that formed in late autumn. This was the leakage of poison aura. Even if it was only a weak portion, it was enough to turn this area into a barren wasteland. Even if 10,000 years passed, no vegetation would be able to grow here. Qin Yu's calm eyes revealed a trace of pity. He could imagine Qin Yun's anger and unwillingness right now. Originally, she should have been the ultimate winner, but without any warning, she had failed and ended up in her current state. If it were anyone else, they wouldn't be able to accept this. But Qin Yu wouldn't be soft-hearted, because this was a man-eating world to begin with. If he didn't kill Qin Yun, he would die. Her life poison flowed out at an astonishing speed, like a broken dam. Qin Yun's face gradually paled, and the fear in her eyes became increasingly heavy. She no longer hoped that she could poison Qin Yu to death. She tried her best to restrain the poison in her body so that it wouldn't continue to flow out. 10,000 poison body Poison was her life force. Once the poison in her body was exhausted, she would welcome death. Qin Yu lightly said, "Don't you think it's too late to stop now?" He looked up, his eyes cold and indifferent. Bang! A terrifying suction force erupted. Qin Yu turned into a human-shaped black hole. The vine that connected the two of them began to violently tremble. Ah! Qin Yun screamed miserably. Her body twitched as she fell to the ground. She loudly begged for mercy, promising countless conditions. As long as Qin Yu was willing to spare her life, she was willing to do anything. Qin Yu didn't doubt her attitude at all. When a person was on the verge of death, they would do anything to survive. But his eyes remained cold. How could he trust such a woman with a heart as sharp as a snake? Qin Yun's screams became increasingly intense. "Save me! Hurry and save me!" Although she had promised not to reveal any information, she couldn't care too much about this at this time. In the treehouse, Sage's face was filled with anger. He never imagined that things would develop to this step. Hearing Qin Yun's cry for help, his complexion became increasingly ugly. He took a deep breath and slowly reached out a hand. The old palm hung in the air. After a brief pause, it slowly pressed down. It wasn't just to save Qin Yun, but to kill Qin Yu. He could not allow such a proud son of heaven to exist in the demonic path. His talent was already unrivaled under the heavens. If he obtained today's good fortune, he would surely be able to suppress the world. He had to kill him. Thinking of this, a cold light shined in Sage's eyes. Rumble, rumble. In the skies above the small world, winds began to stir. Countless pitch-black clouds tumbled and gathered together, turning into a terrifying hand. This hand was astonishing. It nearly occupied the entire skies and slowly pressed down towards the earth. Even before it descended, its destructive aura had already locked onto Qin Yu. Qin Yu's body shook and he looked up. As he saw this terrifying hand, his pupils shrank. Who was it that attacked? Could there be someone hidden in this small world that he hadn't discovered yet? But if this person had such strength, he could easily kill all of them. Why would he go through so much trouble? Qin Yu never imagined that Sage's actions today were extremely secretive. He didn't want to reveal anything in order to avoid being discovered by the demonic path. But now he had no other choice. He could only brazenly attack and exterminate this person. Within his soul space, the cosmic sea-cross bell wildly trembled, resisting the terrifying suppression that descended upon his soul. At the same time, the purple moon and blue sun shined brightly, and a burning feeling spread through his body once more. Suddenly, the space in front of Qin Yu collapsed inwards. A great sun appeared from within, its light so vast that no one dared to look straight at it. Qin Yin miserably cried out. The rate at which the poison flowed out of her body suddenly rose, completely plundering her in the blink of an eye. Her flesh and blood withered. Her beautiful face turned into a skeleton. All of this happened in just a single breath of time. Pah! Her corpse fell to the ground. Perhaps she never imagined that she would die in this small world, but she had died like this. Countless years of bitter cultivation had vanished into nothingness before she could illuminate the world. Destiny was like this. Even if it seemed bright and resplendent, the truth was that it was filled with black holes. You could hope for it, but you could never control it. The sage's lips twitched. There was no need to describe the heartache he felt for having so many years of cultivation destroyed in a single day. But right now, he couldn't care less about Qin Yun's life or death. His pupils shrank and he stepped forwards. His gaze pierced through space and looked towards the great sun in the void. Although he didn't know what this great sun was, his instincts screamed out in fear. Even more than that, there was greed and desire. At this moment, a thought suddenly appeared in the sage's mind. As long as he could obtain this great sun, the monster race would become invincible in the future. The fate of their race would be thoroughly changed. Obtain it no matter the price, he had to obtain it The sage's eyes burned with a burning heat. He gasped for breath, and his hand fell even faster. Qin Yu never imagined that the little blue lamp would be forced to descend into this small world on its own initiative. For it to do this was enough to prove just how terrifying this palm was. He absolutely could not clash with it. His thoughts stirred. Qin Yu wanted to escape into the Saint Sun token. He hoped that this Saint Sun token from the Nine-Realm Holy Land could block this terrifying strike. At the very least, he had to offset the majority of the strength and fight for a slim chance of survival. After killing one, another came, and each one was fiercer than the last. Was there no end to this motherfucker? As Qin Yu cursed inwardly, he felt an intense, burning pain on his back. The demon head hidden in his flesh and blood reappeared. It opened its eyes and looked up into the skies, emitting a silent roar. Rumble, rumble. Within the small world, 1,000,000 bolts of thunder appeared at the same time. The billowing sound waves shook mountains and rivers, and countless trees were instantly turned to powder. Above the terrifying hand, even higher in the skies, a demon head appeared, a raging sea of blood in its eyes. Within the study, the sage's eyes blazed with heat, as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over him. He revealed a look of unwillingness, but in the blink of an eye, he had already made his decision. He took a deep breath and suppressed his tumbling emotions. Then he stepped forwards, and the floor of the cabin instantly cracked apart. Blood gushed out, forming a pool of blood. The sage drew back his hand and fell backwards, his entire body submerged in blood. In the next moment, the blood pool tumbled and bubbles drilled out. It was like boiling water, constantly evaporating the blood. After several breaths of time, the blood pool had completely dried up. The sage's figure had already vanished from sight. The giant hand that fell from the skies lost the support of its following strength. After continuing downwards, it was unable to maintain the boundless strength and directly exploded in midair. Bang! A visible shock wave swept out in all directions, tearing apart the clouds and causing the skies to brighten. Qin Yu narrowed his eyes. His black robes fluttered about him. He didn't move. His eyes fell on the demon head that appeared in the skies, his thoughts rapidly racing. When the demon ascension gate opened, this demon head had been on the gate. At that time, his back had been burning with a burning pain. Today, in order to deal with that heaven-shaking strike, when the demon head appeared in the skies, he felt a burning pain on his back once more. Could this demon head in the skies be related to him in some way? Qin Yu hadn't forgotten that when he was hunting down the Demon Wolf King, the strength that had suddenly descended and imprisoned the Demon Wolf King's self-destruction might have come from this demon head. Thinking about it, the only possibility was that he had obtained Ningling's demonic bloodline. This was because when he obtained her bloodline in the past, Ningling had drawn a demon head on his back. As soon as this thought appeared, a bolt of lightning tore through Qin Yu's mind. Behind him, that blurry and indistinct demon head that he couldn't sense suddenly appeared. It was exactly the same as the devilish head that had appeared in the sky. Qin, you didn't have the chance to be stunned or cry out in alarm. This was because when the demon head behind him clearly appeared, a resonance suddenly arrived. And the two sides that resonated were the demon head behind him and the demon head in the skies. His mind trembled. An ancient and boundless aura instantly covered his soul. A deep and dignified whisper spread into his ears. This was a language that Qin Yu didn't understand, but strangely enough, he understood its meaning. This was because this was a bloodline resonance. Only a demonic bloodline of the same origin could activate it and obtain the inheritance contained within. And the core of this inheritance was the imprisonment. Qin Yu naturally became aware of this. He had obtained Ningling's bloodline, and its name was Forbidden Blood. This small world was constructed with the ancient tree monster as its foundation. The reason it was able to exist until now was because it had fused with the Forbidden Bloodline, allowing it to suppress everything around it. The world gate is about to open. Junior, you don't know how many years have passed. You don't have much time left. Could it be that you want to leave the demon blood crystal to others? The demon head in the skies looked deeply at Chinyu. There was actually a bit of warmth and gratification in its crimson sea of blood. In the next moment, it vanished from sight. Chinyu bowed, a bit of guilt in his heart. This was because he was well aware that he didn't have any bloodline. But as he thought about how there was no distinction between him and Ningling, he calmed down. Looking up at the demon blood crystal, Chinyu endured his injuries and struggled up from the ground, walking towards it. Heavenly Demon City. A terrifying aura was like an invisible mountain, pressing down on everyone's hearts. The entire city was silent. No one dared to make a single sound. This was because the entrance to the Demon Ascension Gates, small world, had yet to open. The demonic path almighty figures had tried all sorts of methods, but they hadn't made any progress. Somewhere in a grand hall, the burning torches couldn't tear through the darkness. As far as the eye could see, it was still shrouded in darkness. A giant demon statue stood there. 2 demonic path priests respectfully stood at its side. Not too far away was a white-robed figure. This person held his hands behind his back as he stood in front of the demon statue. His back was straight, and there wasn't the least bit of awe in him. But the 2 demonic path priests seemed to be blind, turning a blind eye to this blasphemous scene. This was because this person was the walking incarnation of a demon in this world. Beneath the white robes was a man who seemed to be in his 30s. His aura was filled with the vicissitudes of time, and he gave off a tranquil feeling. He wasn't tall or large, but he gave off an unsurpassable feeling. Why? The white-robed man asked in a soft voice. His calm voice constantly echoed through the grand hall. There was silence, but he frowned, as if he had obtained some sort of response. The 2 priests bowed even more deeply. Deep reverence appeared on their extremely aged faces. The white-robed man continued to say, "Open the small world. I need to know just what happened." There was another period of silence. The white-robed man frowned. With a simple movement, the darkness in the grand hall suddenly condensed, as if it were about to freeze over. After several breaths of time, he let out a deep breath. "I have at most 2 hours to open the small world. Otherwise, I will personally do it." He turned and walked away, his figure submerging into the darkness. The 2 priests bowed. "We respectfully bid Lord Demon Envoy farewell." Within the small world, in a chaotic space, a towering skeleton was sitting cross-legged. The reason it could be described as towering was because the skeleton was far too astonishing. Even sitting on the ground, it was still several thousand feet tall. If it stood up, it would inevitably surpass 10,000 feet. Every bone seemed to be made of translucent jade. Countless lines were faintly discernible on their surface, giving off a different sense of beauty. As one looked at them, it felt as if their entire mind would be pulled out, sinking into these lines, unable to escape. Suddenly, deep within the skeleton's eye sockets, 2 extremely dark purple lights appeared. They slowly and painfully throbbed. "My lineage has actually not been severed. Ha ha ha! The will of the heavens. Everything is the will of the heavens. Everything that the demonic path owes me will be collected by my descendants on my behalf. In the land of divinity and demons, a storm is about to rise. This world will be thrown into chaos. I can already see mountains of corpses and seas of blood, the lives in misery and suffering. My descendant, I hope that you can ride the storm and take back everything that our lineage has lost." The low roar reverberated through the chaos space. The ancient tree monster had completely withered away. The yellow leaves on the ground were hundreds of feet deep. The withered branches stretched into the skies like unwilling bone hands that emitted silent cries. Suddenly, a strong wind rose up in this lonely world, sweeping up the fallen leaves and sending them flying into the skies. Amongst the flying leaves, a black-robed figure stood tall. He looked up at the skies above his head and stepped forwards. Ripples appeared in the air, as if they were water, allowing him to pass through. Chapter 5:14. Dawn Perch Inn was one of the largest inns in Heavenly Demon City. The front courtyard was used for dining and entertainment, and the back courtyard was used for lodging. The magnificent building stretched out along the beautiful scenery of Bright Dawn Lake, surrounding most of the lake area. There was even a large net set up in the middle of the lake, occupying a large portion of the lake for private use. For Dawn Perch Inn to be able to accomplish these things, its background wasn't simple at all. Duan San-er's application to be a manservant here made him feel proud and elated. The daughter of old second son's family didn't even look at him in the eye before, but now the one who gave him autumn spinach was enough to kill him. Not to mention anything else. Just the generous salary and generous tips were enough to make one envious. 2 days ago, Duan San-er had clenched his teeth and switched to a pear brand fruit handphone. The eyes of the Sun family's daughter had turned into little hooks, causing him to be secretly pleased with himself. But at the same time, his heart was also racing. But these days, Duan San had been walking with the wind, carefully tucking his tail between his legs. Recently, the atmosphere in the city had been strange. It was said that even the true demon guard stationed at the Holy Palace had come. It was clear that something monumental had occurred. The Demon Ascension Gates grand ceremony had ended, but the usual celebration ceremony hadn't been held. Thinking back to the rumors he had heard a few days ago, Duan San-er shrunk his neck. He quickly walked along the roadside and finally entered the inn. Only then did he relax. The shopkeeper had a bad complexion. "Why didn't you come earlier? The inn is so busy. Did you have to wait until later?" Duan San-er apologized. In truth, the shopkeeper wasn't a bad person. It was just that the atmosphere in the city had become tense, and the income from the front courtyard's entertainment venues had sharply decreased. The shopkeeper, who valued money above all else, was now in a very bad mood. He quickly changed his clothes, carefully combed his hair, and put on a small black hat. Then he walked behind the counter and began to work. His luck was pretty good. Just as he stood there to catch his breath, a guest arrived. This could be considered his performance, and he would be able to obtain a commission from this guest's spending. "Welcome, guest. How can I help you?" Duan San-er brightly smiled. In truth, although his name was a bit rotten, his appearance was quite good. He gave off the feeling of a pretty boy. Accommodation. Duan San-er was discouraged. Of all the commissions, accommodation was the least, but his smile didn't diminish in the slightest. After receiving the identity card issued by the Black Demon Sect and verifying the information, Duan San-er said, "That's enough. May I ask what requirements guest has for the accommodation environment?" "Open a quiet, independent courtyard." Duan San-er's spirit shook, and he subconsciously glanced at the guest in front of him. He was wearing a simple black robe without any unnecessary accessories, and besides a pair of relatively bright eyes, he was completely unremarkable. Sure enough, you can't judge a book by its cover. Casually booking an independent courtyard was much more expensive than a single room. Similarly, the commission was also very generous. "Customer, please wait a moment." Duan San-er's movements were even more nimble. He quickly found the room's information and smiled. "Dear guest, your luck is really good. We only have one independent courtyard left, and the environment is absolutely quiet. If you had come a bit later, I'm afraid it would have been gone." "Wait," someone interrupted. "You said there's only one independent courtyard?" Duan San-er looked up and saw that the speaker was a middle-sized young man in the back of the line. At a glance, his clothes and accessories made him think of the word nouveau riche. Coupled with his arrogant attitude and disdainful eyes, it was obvious that he was not an ordinary person. How could he dare to offend him? "Yes, dear guest, there's only one left." Shirziji lightly said, "We want this courtyard." He flicked his sleeves. "We will pay double the price." Duan San-er sighed inwardly, but he revealed an awkward expression. Although he wanted to earn more, he was afraid of ruining the inn's reputation. "This dear guest, you see, the guest in front came first. You can discuss this among yourselves." Shirziji frowned. "Brat, if you know what's good for you, then leave. If you ruin my mood, you won't have a good time." In front of the counter, a black-robed figure turned around, revealing a calm expression. His calm eyebrows were slightly furrowed. It was Chinyu, who had just left the small world. "Big brother, don't be rude." Without waiting for him to say anything, the beautiful female cultivator pouted and bowed. "Fellow Taoist, I am really sorry. It's just that there are many people in our group, so it is more convenient to live in the courtyard. I see that fellow Taoist is alone, so how about giving up the courtyard and we will be responsible for paying the bill? We will also choose a quiet room for fellow Taoist. I wonder if fellow Taoist is willing?" Shirziji wanted to say something, but the woman glared at him. He coughed a few times in dissatisfaction and then bitterly shut his mouth. "Chin, you was silent for a moment." He nodded, "All right." Duan-san hurriedly opened a room and offered the room card and identity card with both hands. "Dear guest, please accept this. When you arrive at the rear courtyard, someone will naturally bring you to your room." Chinyu turned and left. Shirziji unhappily said, "Little sister, there are so many people here. Can you give me some face? How could we let this boy take advantage of us for nothing?" Sure, Ching humphed. "Heavenly Demon City is in a tense situation. Before we came, Father told us not to stir up any trouble. Big brother, you had best behave yourself. Otherwise I will complain to Father." As she spoke, she looked at Chinyu's back. Her beautiful eyebrows furrowed together, revealing a bit of hesitation. Although this person looked ordinary, she didn't know why, but she always felt that it was best not to provoke him. Shirziji had an embarrassed expression. To be an older brother who had to be controlled by his little sister when he went out wasn't a glorious matter at all. He viciously glared at Duan-san, who was trying not to laugh. "What are you looking at? Hurry up and do something." The shopkeeper's old face was filled with wrinkles. "You disgraceful thing. You can't do anything right, and yet you dare to neglect an honored guest? Scram out and do something. I will personally receive you." Duan-san was unwilling, but he didn't dare to talk back. He left with a bitter expression and just happened to see Chinyu walking towards the rear courtyard of the inn. His eyes brightened and he quickly followed. This person wasn't lacking in spirit stones. If he served him, he might be able to make up for it. He had just lost a great deal of commission, so he had to think of a way to make up for it. Thinking of this, Duan-san quickened his pace, almost running to catch up. "Dear guest, I will accompany you to your room." Chinyu nodded, not saying anything. Duan-san quickly took 2 steps forward. He slightly bowed, a bright smile on his face as he led the way. After entering the rear courtyard, the young servant responsible for leading the way saw Duan-san follow them, and his complexion became a bit ugly. But as he looked behind him and saw that it was only Chinyu, he cursed in a low voice and pretended not to see him. A lone guest didn't seem to have much to gain from this, so it wasn't good for this boy to take advantage of him. Duan-san relaxed. He thought to himself that this boy had made a mistake this time. "Dear guest, we have arrived. This is your room. There is a landline in the room. If you have any needs, you can call the front desk according to the manual. We will serve you wholeheartedly." Duan-san, his smile was incomparably sincere. Unfortunately, Chinyu's mind was full of thoughts. He didn't notice Duan-san's thoughts at all. He nodded and walked in. Bang! The door closed. This wasn't right. Duan-san was dumbfounded. His lips moved, but in the end he didn't dare to say anything. He lowered his head and left. At the entrance to the rear courtyard, the young servant responsible for leading the way sneered as he saw Duan-san's appearance. This young master's discerning eyes had never misjudged a person. He had worked hard for nothing. How delightful! After greeting him with a smile, Duan-san Er nodded in embarrassment and hurried away. After the shopkeeper received an extra sum of spirit stones, he was in a much better mood and began to train his subordinates. Duan San nearly broke his legs from running around, but he soon threw this gloominess to the back of his mind. By the time he thought about it again, it was already 2 days later. He had been assigned by the shopkeeper to inspect the cleaning work. To put it bluntly, he had to continue cleaning. As he picked up the rag and his back was aching, he heard the sound of footsteps behind him. As he thought about the floor he had just wiped clean, Duan San-er's face turned green. But the guest was God. Just as he was about to squeeze out a smile and say welcome, he suddenly froze in place. His entire body was covered in black scales, and even his face was covered. From head to toe, the only thing that could be seen were his eyes. The floor had turned black from being stepped on. But at this time, how could Duan San be in the mood to care about such things? His mind was buzzing. Faint traces of infernal energy slithered around him like small snakes, drilling into his robes and sticking to his body. The Yin chill penetrated deep into his heart. Duan San, his teeth began to chatter. Duan San tottered. Just who were these people? Their auras were so terrifying. Mommy, I want to cry. As Duan San was about to cry, another group of cultivators walked towards him. The one leading them was Shirziji. This young master of the Shir family didn't seem to be in a good mood. He had a gloomy expression as he hurried forwards. When he heard the sound of footsteps, he looked up with an impatient expression. But when he saw who it was, his impatient expression instantly froze. His pupils violently shrank, revealing a look of shock and awe. True demon guards. Sure, Ching grabbed her brother and pulled him to the side of the road. Shirziji regained his composure and hurriedly bowed along with everyone else. These were the true demon guards that guarded the Holy Palace. They were loyal to the demonic path's Holy Lord and had an incomparably revered status with great authority. This was because the position of the Holy Lord had been vacant these past years, and the true demon guards had remained within the Holy Palace. Gradually, no one knew of their influence. But as long as they had some background, they absolutely wouldn't provoke these true demon guards. That was no different from seeking death. And what was even more frustrating was that even if they died, they would have died in vain, and no one could take revenge for them. This was because, in theory, besides the Holy Lord, no one in the demonic path had the qualifications to punish the true demon guards. When the group of black-armored true demon guards walked over, Shirziji looked up, envy in his eyes. One of his life's greatest wishes was to join the true demon guards. Unfortunately, after so many years had passed, his hopes had become increasingly remote. As he was thinking about why these true demon guards had come here, he saw them suddenly stop in front of a small 5-story building. This seemed to be a single room in an inn. Could it be that the true demon guards had investigated something and had come here today to take someone away? Shirziji's eyes brightened, but what happened next nearly caused his eyes to pop out of his head. He saw the group of true demon guards that were filled with overwhelming slaughter intent suddenly restrain their auras. Although they still stood tall and straight, they gave off a docile feeling. Docile, that's right, they were docile. Shirziji was dumbfounded. He had a strange feeling as if he were looking at a group of tigers and then a group of white rabbits. Could someone tell him just what was happening? A true demon guard stepped forwards. He cupped his hands together and bowed. May I ask if fellow Taoist Yaobin is here? In the small building of the single room, the shadows of people were moving about behind the window. Everyone was staring outside with their eyes wide open, not knowing what was going on. Duan San quivered and suddenly thought of something. Yao Bin, this name was familiar. He looked up with difficulty towards a guest room on the 3rd floor. Could it be him? At this time the door was pushed open from the inside, and Qin Yu stepped out. His eyes calmly fell. I am Yao Bin. What business do you have? The true demon guard cupped his hands together. I have come here on orders. I hope that fellow Taoist Yao Bin can come with us and understand some matters. Qin Yu hesitated for a moment and then nodded. All right. He had already expected today's situation. The reason why he had stayed in Heavenly Demon City after leaving the small world was because he was waiting for this moment. If he wanted to join the demonic path, he had to rush through this hurdle. Luckily, he was prepared, so there shouldn't be any mistakes. As he walked downstairs, the group of true demon guards bowed once more and gestured. Qin Yu strode forwards with the true demon guards following behind. Although he hadn't changed at all from yesterday, in the eyes of everyone present, he seemed to be a completely different person. True demon guard. This was a true demon guard, and yet he was so respectful to him. Shirziji was dumbfounded. Then he felt a deep sense of joy in his heart. I'm lucky that my little sister stopped me that day. Otherwise, if I really offended this person, I fear I wouldn't even know how I died. Shi Qingqing's eyes widened. Although she had felt that Qin Yu wasn't an ordinary person the day before yesterday, she never imagined he would have such a great background. For a true demon guard to be so polite to him, this wasn't a courtesy that an ordinary person could obtain. After all, the status of a true demon guard was special. To a certain extent, there were no taboos in their actions. In fact, there was indeed more to this than meets the eye. It would be mentioned in the future, so there was no need to speak too much about it here. After walking for some time, Qin Yu suddenly stopped. He turned and said, I will be back soon. Don't return the room. Stay here for me. Duan San was stunned for a moment before he realized that he was being spoken to. His face flushed red, and he was so excited that he couldn't speak. He could only nod. Good heavens, such a great figure is actually speaking to me. Qin Yu smiled. He turned and walked away. Outside Donperchin, there was a true demon guard speed car. Qin Yu sat down and leaned back in the soft leather seat, closing his eyes in meditation. Sitting across from him were two true demon guards. The two of them looked up and down, occasionally revealing looks of surprise. If it weren't for that person from the Zhao family personally endorsing him, it would be hard to believe that this common-looking youth in front of them actually possessed such astonishing strength. The speed car moved forwards quickly. It had clearly been modified by an array formation, so it didn't shake at all. They soon arrived at their destination. Qin Yu stood up and got off. As he looked at the signboard of Heavenly Demon City's city, Lord Mansion, his pupils shrank. What a terrifying aura! The current city, Lord Mansion, was simply an unfathomable abyss. 7 auras shot into the heavens like towering mountains, leaving one in awe. But at this time, what Qin Yu felt the most incredible was the 8th aura. It was incomparably weak, like a candle flame, but it gave off an extremely terrifying feeling, as if just the slightest tremble could turn this world into purgatory. Fellow Taoist Yao Bin, please. The true demon guard led the way. Qin Yu let out a breath. He nodded and followed behind. His steps were steady as he walked into the city, Lord Mansion. Chapter 5:15. The situation that Qin Yu worried about the most didn't occur. The Calamity Immortal Realm Supreme elders still had their own statuses. Even if they attached great importance to the unexpected change in the Demon Ascension Gate, they still didn't personally appear to inquire. This was naturally good news for Qin Yu. Even if he was prepared, facing a Calamity Immortal Realm Supreme elder would inevitably cause him to be extremely nervous. There was no telling if there would be a mistake. The true demon guards stood guard outside the door. Across from them were the 2 demonic path masters who were responsible for questioning Qin Yu today. Their auras were tyrannical. They were both peak blue sea characters. However, the cultivator on the left had a gentle expression. As he saw Qin Yu enter, he nodded in acknowledgement. As for the one on the right, his attitude wasn't friendly at all. His icy cold eyes were like blades, filled with a chilling intent. Name? Li Yunqi shouted out loud. Qin Yu frowned. He glanced at him and said, Yao Bin. Black demon sex Yao Bin? That's me. Li Yunqi sneered. Identity confirmed. Yao Bin, today I will question you on behalf of the demonic path. You must tell us everything you experienced after entering the Demon Ascension Gates, small world. I advise you to tell us the truth. If you are discovered to be hiding something, you won't like the consequences. Sun Shi nodded. Fellow Taoist Yao Bin, this matter is of great importance. The Calamity Immortals are paying close attention to it, so you must think carefully before you speak. Don't forget anything. Li Yunqi frowned, a bit dissatisfied with Qin Yu's attitude. But the two of them had similar statuses, so he could only snort. Sun Shi faintly smiled, not caring. Qin Yu's thoughts stirred. After several breaths of silence, he slowly said, On the day the Demon Ascension Gate opened, I entered the small world with fellow Taoists and met fellow Taoist Sun Zifu and the others, and sure enough, as he spoke to hear, Qin Yu saw a bright light flash in Sun Shi's eyes. He seemed to have made some judgments in his mind, and his tone became even calmer. He recounted his experiences in the small world as they were. Of course, most of what Qin Yu said could be substantiated. There were some key points that he used the spring and autumn annal style to gloss over in a few sentences. Li Yunqi interrupted Qin Yu several times, asking him to elaborate. But no matter how he thought about it, he couldn't find anything wrong. There were some things that they didn't know about Qin Yu's story, and some things that they had verified from other aspects. Now that they compared them, Qin Yu's story was much more believable. 9 truths and 1 falsehood was naturally the hardest to unravel. When Xian Zhao saw that he wasn't a match for the Monster Emperor, he used a secret technique to escape. As for me, I didn't have the slightest confidence in facing the resurrected Monster Emperor, so I also ran away. Qin Yu picked up the teacup in front of him and took a sip, indicating that he had finished speaking. Li Yunqi was flustered and exasperated. Tell me in detail. After Zhao Qianyuan left, what did you do? At this critical moment, how could he allow himself to be so perfunctory? Qin Yu set down the teacup. What does fellow Taoist Zhao want to know? I've already said it very clearly. After Xian Zhao escaped, I didn't dare to stay for long. I followed closely behind and escaped from the small world. Could it be that fellow Taoist Zhao believes that in that sort of situation, I wouldn't be in a hurry to escape and would have the mind to do something else? Li Yunqi's face was livid. That was not what he wanted to know. Yao Bin seemed to be obedient, but in fact he was so slippery that he didn't get any useful information at all. It was almost certain that Yao Bin was the last person to leave, but who knew what had happened? Zhao Qianyuan had already escaped. So how could Yao Bin possibly contend with him? Taking a deep breath, Li Yunqi coldly said, Yao Bin, how did you leave the small world? Qin Yu looked at him, his eyes filled with pity, as if he were looking at an idiot. Li Yunqi slammed the table. Yao Bin, I'm warning you. You had best be honest and answer my questions. This bastard, just what kind of eyes did he have? He really deserved to be burned to death. Qin Yu's voice turned cold. Fellow Taoist Li, the method I use to escape from the small world is my greatest secret. Li Yunqi sneered. I ask questions on behalf of the demonic path. You must answer all my questions. Qin Yu was silent for several breaths of time. He nodded and sighed. It looks like I have to say it. There are some parts of what I said before that I wasn't too clear on, so I will have to say it again. Li Yunqi's eyes brightened. Hurry up and speak. Brat, are you scared? If you want to be honest now, it's too late. No matter how cooperative you are, how did you leave the small world? Don't even think about skipping over this question. Qin Yu nodded. As I said before, another group of cultivators suddenly fell into the demonic path, and the monster tree puppets crazily attacked them. In addition, the matter of the monster race, Great Emperor resurrecting, was too terrifying. So many people decided to flee. The first person to successfully escape was Dong Hanju. So the rumors were true. Fellow Taoist Dong was born with a bead in his mouth, and this bead can actually summon 7 colors. The reason Dong Hanju was able to escape was because of the power of this bead. Now, I will explain the process in detail. Li Yunqi's face turned green. He shouted, "Shut up!" Cold, sweat dripped down his forehead. Dong Hanju was the future star of the Dong family and had an extremely high status in the Dong family. The bead he was born with was his greatest secret. If the information about this bead were to be exposed today because of his inquiry, Li Yunqi clenched his teeth. Let's skip this part and continue. Qin Yu nodded. Next is Su Guzi, Zhou Fenghuang, and Mu Qingwan. I must say that fellow Taoist Su's attainments in array formations are truly unfathomable. He was actually able to lay down a secret array to tear apart space. Unfortunately, the final result was that Su Guzi died and Zhou Fenghuang and Mu Qingwan borrowed the power of the array to escape. As for the specifics, let me slowly explain it to you. Li Yunqi stood up. His movements were too fast and too fierce. He bumped into the table and nearly overturned it. The teacups fell to the ground with loud, crackling sounds. Qin Yu had an innocent expression. "Fellow Taoist Li, what is it?" Li Yunqi took a deep breath and then another. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to hold himself back and would jump over and strangle this bastard to death. Even this part can escape. This bastard was absolutely doing this on purpose. Dong Hanju's matter was already tricky enough, but he actually dared to mention Su Guzi's death. Now that the entire Su family had gone crazy, if he asked something he shouldn't ask, then the Zhou family and Mu family wouldn't be easy to provoke. They would absolutely make him suffer the consequences. Qin Yu readily accepted his advice. Good, then continue. When Xian Zhao's dragon spear struck out with a heaven-shaking strike, he truly became the incarnation of a divine dragon, and massive dragon scales appeared on his spear. He was crying, "Motherfucker, you can't play with me like this. I don't want to know anything at all." If the Zhao family knew that Zhao Qinyuan's secrets had been exposed, wouldn't he be torn to pieces? Thinking about it, he feared that even 80 pieces wouldn't be enough. Li Yunqi shuddered, and a cold chill ran down his spine. Sun Shi's lips curved up in a smile, and he finally relaxed. It was clear that this Yao Bin was a smart person. That surname Li had a member of his family die, so he didn't like anyone he saw. And now it was unknown who he was listening to. But if he wanted to obtain something from him, it seemed that there was no hope. Li Yuni flew into a rage. "Yao Bin, if you want to die, then don't drag us down with you. This matter involves the secrets of everyone's cultivation. So how could it be made public?" Qin Yu's complexion was cold. "It seems that fellow Taoist Li hasn't drunk too much. Since you know this, why are you still forcing me?" Li Yuni jumped into the pit. His face turned the color of pig liver, but he couldn't say a single word. This was the same as Qin Yu using his own words to ruthlessly slap him in the face. Sun Shi stepped forward to smooth things over. If this surname Li were to shed all pretense of cordiality, then no one would have any face left. If the lords of the mansion were to learn of this, he would have the impression of being incompetent. "Fellow Taoist Yao, please calm down." Fellow Taoist Li was worried about the small world, so his words were a bit rash. "Please don't take it to heart. As cultivators, which one of us doesn't have some secrets? We naturally don't want others to know about this. This is understandable." He paused and continued to say, "Today's questioning has been very clear. How about we end things here first? What does fellow Taoist Li think?" Li Yuni's complexion darkened. "I have no objections. Surname Yao Bastard, I will remember you. We aren't finished yet." Qin Yu stood up and cupped his hands together. "If that's the case, then I will bid my farewells first." He turned and left. Li Yuni flicked his sleeves and left. Just as he was about to leave the city lord mansion, Sun Shi caught up to him. "Fellow Taoist Yao, please wait a moment." Qin Yu turned around. "Fellow Taoist son, is there something you need?" Sun Shi was full of smiles. His voice was warm and friendly. I'll be rude and call fellow Taoist, Yao little brother. You saved my family's young master, and as your uncle, I am deeply grateful. He was truly grateful. After the small world opened, Sun Zifu, who had buried himself underground, was rescued. After crying and howling for some time, the Sun family soon discovered just how he had survived. Some people hated Qinyu for meddling in other people's business, but there were also people who were extremely grateful to him. Sun Shi was one of these people. Because he had no children, he regarded this nephew of his, Sun Zifu, as his own son. He always had high hopes for him. Qinyu was enlightened. So fellow Taoist Sun and Sun Zifu are actually uncle and nephew. Sun Shi smiled. What? You don't want to call me Big Brother? Qinyu cupped his hands together. Big Brother Sun is too serious. It's just that I and Sun Zifu are of the same generation, so I fear it might be a bit inappropriate. Sun Shi waved his hand. Even if this little brat cultivates for several hundred more years, he still might not have the qualifications to call me little brother. From now on, just call me nephew. With these words, young Master Sun had lowered his seniority. Qinyu smiled and nodded. Sun Shi lowered his voice. The changes in the small world are too great, and the demonic path is placing great importance on it. But this matter might also have other consequences. Brother Yao, for the next few days, it would be best if you stayed in Heavenly Demon City and didn't casually leave. He straightened himself. I still have to report to the Lords, so I won't send you off. You and I will have plenty of opportunities to get closer in the future. He cupped his hands together and bid his farewells. That surname Li was short-sighted, but he wasn't an idiot. If this Yao Bin could obtain such a high evaluation from Zhao Qianyuan, then he definitely wasn't an ordinary person. His future achievements would be limitless. Since the Sun family had a chance to form a relationship with him, he naturally had to manage it well. Perhaps there would be unexpected harvests in the future. The Sun family was rich enough to rival an entire nation, and their strength couldn't be underestimated. But in terms of peak strength, they were just barely passable. Otherwise, why would he cast his net so wide in hopes of harvesting something? Shaking his head, Sun Shi quickened his pace. He gathered his thoughts and began to prepare to report to the Lords. Although Li Yunqi didn't like Qinyu and wished that he couldn't leave the house, facing a Calamity Immortal Realm superpower house, he didn't dare to speak half a word of lies. At most, he would describe Qinyu's wild and unruly nature. After that, Sun Shi said it again. Basically, he was cleared of suspicion. After receiving the signal, the two bowed, drew back several steps and left. In the main hall, because space couldn't withstand the fluctuations of strength, it began to distort. This wasn't intentional, but was a natural result of the aura dissipating. A blurry figure slowly said, "With what we have now, there is no way we can find any useful clues from these juniors." Another figure said, "Ever since the Demon Ascension Gate was established, my demonic path has never suffered such a great loss. Of the 11,300 disciples, less than 20% survived. The demonic path's 100 years of cultivation will be destroyed in a single day. We must clearly investigate this matter. Why did the slumbering monster race, Great Emperor, suddenly wake up?" On the upper left, the white-robed demon attendant suddenly said, "This time, the demonic path's junior elites have suffered serious casualties. But that doesn't mean we haven't gained anything. Today, this Yao Bin is equal to 10,000 people. Even so, the greatest problem is that the ancient tree monster has withered and the small world will soon collapse. This is the demonic path's greatest loss." The atmosphere suddenly froze. If it were only the young disciples that had suffered heavy casualties, then although they were angry, they wouldn't be so solemn. After all, the Demon Ascension Gate was open once every 100 years, and the demonic path had a deep background. Even if this generation of disciples were destroyed, they could naturally replenish themselves after another 100 years. there wouldn't be too much of an impact. But the price of a small world being destroyed was far too heavy, so heavy that even with their status, they found it hard to bear. This was because a small world represented an endless source of demonic power. It could raise a massive number of demonic path powerhouses. Once it was destroyed, it would be far more difficult for the outstanding demonic path disciples to awaken their bloodlines. The demon attendant lightly said, "Countless years ago, my demonic path's ancestors didn't have a small world, but they were still able to create an unrivaled pressure and establish the transcendent orthodoxy of the demonic path. Now that it has been destroyed, although this is a great loss, from another perspective it might not be a bad thing. In the end, when a cultivator cultivates, they can only rely on themselves. If they are strong enough, why would they need to rely on external objects?" A woman spoke up, her voice young and tender. "Lord Demon Attendant is right. Who cares if the small world is destroyed? Do you think that the prestige of my demonic path today will be affected by this?" She paused for a moment and then continued to say, "There is another problem right now. How will we announce this matter? Right now, the entire land of divinity and demons has gathered at Heavenly Demon City. An accident had occurred at the Demon Ascension Gates grand ceremony, and the demonic path's young disciples had suffered heavy casualties. This news had already spread out through various channels, but most people didn't know the specifics. Nearly 10,000 disciples had died. Of course, there were heavy casualties, but 2,000 or 3,000 could also be described as such. As long as the demonic path had the heart to suppress this, it wouldn't be difficult to hide the true losses. The reason they did this was because of Face, the solemn and transcendent demonic path, one of the two great influences of the land of divinity and demons, had suffered such a great loss without even knowing what had happened. If this matter were to spread out, it was inevitable that they would lose Face. The fewer people that died, the less Face they would lose. Several great figures present had also thought of this matter, but no one was willing to speak up. Yen Lu had a close relationship with the demon attendant, so it was best for her to speak up now. The grand hall fell silent. The demon attendant lightly said, "My demonic path has always pursued a perfect heart. If we suffer a loss, we suffer a loss. If we forcefully suppress it, do you think we can pretend it didn't happen? We are just deceiving ourselves and others." His eyes were cold, and his majesty seemed to come from above the highest heavens. "The accident that occurred in the small world will be reported to the world. My demonic path will not let this matter go. No matter who it is, where it comes from, what sort of background it is, once this matter is discovered, all of their clans will be executed. We will use the blood of millions to comfort the dead juniors of the demonic path." Slaughter in tent rose, incomparably domineering. Yen Lu's eyes instantly blurred. As for being scolded to her face, she didn't care at all. He was truly worthy of being called the Lord Demon Attendant. He hadn't changed at all from the past, and still made one unable to close their legs. Qin Yu left the City Lord Mansion and boarded the True Demon Guard speed car. This time, there was no one following him. Qin Yu relaxed just like when he came, leaning back in the soft seat and closing his eyes. But only he knew what sort of pressure he had withstood when he was questioned. 8 terrifying auras flickered in and out of existence, lingering around him the entire time. Although they didn't personally appear, the great figures still paid him the necessary attention. If it weren't for Qin Yu's preparations and his strong will, he would have already been dripping with sweat. How could he have been able to play around with Li Yunqi? Luckily, his performance should have been good. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for Sun Shi to chase after him. He should have passed this hurdle. As he thought about how Sun Shi had told him not to leave Heavenly Demon City in the near future, Qin Yu faintly smiled. The small world had been sealed off, and the Soul Guard Stone had lost its function. The ranking method of past years was no longer applicable. It seemed that there would be some changes to the demonic path's disciple recruitment this time. Qin Yu believed that his name would inevitably be among them. After returning to Dawn Perch residence, the true demon guards bowed and bid their farewells. Their tone was much more respectful than before. Qin Yu bowed in return and turned to enter the inn. After taking just a few steps, someone greeted him. The shopkeeper's face was as bright as a chrysanthemum. He bowed and apologized, saying that he had eyes but failed to see and had neglected the Lord. He then pulled over Duan-san and praised him, saying that from now on he would be the one to specifically serve Lord Yaobin. Qin Yu couldn't help but laugh. He didn't want to be entangled with them any longer. He lightly said, "I'm a bit tired. Don't disturb me." As he spoke, he walked towards the rear courtyard. Duan-san eagerly followed, his face flushed red with excitement. The servants of Dawn Perch residence all had eyes as wide as rabbits. To be able to serve such a powerhouse was something to be proud of. This was seniority. After experiencing such an incident, as long as Duan-san didn't make any mistakes, he would definitely be placed in an important position. And most importantly, if he served Lord Yaobin well and managed to form a relationship with him, the benefits would simply be unimaginable. The shopkeeper sneered and turned to leave, completely ignoring the pleading eyes of these people, who told them to not have Duan-san's eyesight and try to curry favor with him from the start. The servant responsible for guiding the guests in the rear courtyard was now filled with regret. As he thought of Duan-san's depressed face when he left, he couldn't help but curse inwardly. This fellow, he really knew how to act. Did he have to spend a great deal of effort to prevent himself from laughing out loud? That bastard Duan personally opened the door. Of course, it was no longer Qin Yu's single room, but the best courtyard of Dawn Perch residence. After the shopkeeper explained the situation, the people who lived here moved out without a word. Qin Yu wasn't surprised. He nodded and walked in, flicking his sleeves and closing the courtyard door. Duan-san was so happy that he nearly snot came out of his nose. Lord Yaobin nodded to me. Cough, cough, I can't be arrogant. I have to continue to work hard and obtain more of the Lord's approval. Perhaps this might be the chance for him, Duan-san, to change his destiny. As for that snobbish daughter of old second son's family next door, she was dressed in crude clothes, had a large face, a thick waist, and a small chest, and yet she still thought that she was the most arrogant person in the world. She should just go and do whatever she wanted. Chapter 516. In the lands of the extreme north, snow fell all year round, and it was bitterly cold. It was still that roughly hewn cave, but today there are even more people here. Whether it was men or women, they wrapped themselves up like a thick rice dumpling to resist the increasingly strong black ice energy. They knelt on the bone-chilling rocks, their eyes solemn and respectful. Lord Sage, I ask you to reconsider. The man who spoke was tall and large. His palms were pressed against the ground and his joints bulged out. His aura was fierce and firm. The white-robed sage didn't seem to feel the chill of the outside world. He slowly shook his head, a faint smile on his lips. I've worked hard to set it up for so many years. Now that it has been successfully opened, there is no reason to give up halfway. To be able to use this ruined body of mine to exchange for a new life for my race, I am very happy. The tall man wanted to say something else, but was stopped by the sage. The sage slowly swept his eyes around. Look, you are all the most outstanding people of my race, but even you have no choice but to wear thick furs to resist the cold. What about your people, your livestock? We are a group of people abandoned by the world. If we don't want to be exterminated, we can only seek our own path to survival. Go, return to the side of your people who need you. Help them survive and wait for the chance to change the fate of my race. That day won't be too far away. Everyone touched their foreheads to the ground. We will follow your will. We wish you good health. They turned and left one after another. Many people began to shed tears, because by the time the Lord Sage's message arrived, he should have already left. This was a kindness to their race. All monster tribes would forever engrave it in their hearts. The sage softly said, "Bichi, stay here." The tall man respectfully bowed and stood to the side with his head lowered. After everyone left, there were only 2 people left in the cave. It was completely empty. The sage had a blank look in his eyes. It was unknown what he was thinking, but he didn't speak for a time. Bichi hesitated for a moment. He respectfully said, "Lord Sage, are you worried about the future of our race?" The sage regained his composure. He smiled apologetically and shook his head. "No, I have already made my preparations, and you are outstanding enough. I believe that you can become an outstanding king and lead the monster race to rise. Today, I want to tell you something else. In the demonic path, there is an extremely outstanding youth. His existence is likely to become a great hidden danger for the monster race. So, after my race returns to our ancestral land, you must find him and kill him." Bichi frowned. "Are you speaking of Zhao Qianyuan? He is indeed a great threat. I swear that I will kill him at all costs." Sage shook his head. "It wasn't him. Zhao Qianyuan must be killed, but the person I am talking about is even more important." He raised his hand and pointed out. A speck of light appeared, swaying like a snowflake. It fused into Bichi's forehead. "Remember this person. We must find him." Bichi's heart turned cold. He cupped his fists together and said, "Lord Sage, do not worry. I will definitely kill him." It was actually an unfamiliar face. When did such a proud son of heaven appear in the path of devils? But since it was an order from the sage, he only needed to remember it and follow it. Sage nodded. "Go back. Reorganize the army and train up the fiercest vicious beasts. When my monster race reappears in the world, you will be the sharpest sword in our hands." Bichi knelt down and kowtowed heavily. "Please take care." He stood up and strode away. Sage watched him leave, a bit of hesitation in his eyes. He knew that he should immediately find Qinyu and kill him. But the storm in the Demon Ascension Gate's small world had yet to calm down. If he were to attack now, it was likely he would arouse the suspicions of the demonic path and affect his entire plan. Thus, after thinking it over, the sage finally gave up on attacking. "Even if you are outstanding enough and have obtained many great strokes of good fortune, you are still too young. Even if I die, I won't give you enough time to grow and harm my race. So you will definitely die. The only difference is whether it is sooner or later. You must die." A calm and deep voice echoed through the cave, producing echoes as if it were some powerful prophecy. Heavenly Demon City. Qinyu was startled awake from his cultivation. In that moment just now, a great fear rose in his heart, as if he had been locked onto by a vicious beast in a rainforest. But now, when he tried to sense it again, there was no such feeling. It was like everything just now had been an illusion. Qinyu's complexion darkened. He frowned for a long time and took a deep breath to suppress his tumbling thoughts. He closed his eyes and tried to cultivate again, but he couldn't calm his heart no matter what. Unknown dangers always caused one to be more anxious. After several failed attempts to enter meditation, Qinyu simply stood up. He pushed open the training room stone door and walked into the courtyard. This was the best courtyard of Don Perchin, and it naturally lived up to its reputation. The courtyard was large and the scenery was beautiful. Qinyu quietly looked around for a moment. He felt the heavy feeling in his chest lighten a little. He looked up at the sky, opened the courtyard door, and walked towards the inn's front yard. This was already the 3rd day after he left the city, Lord Mansion. Everything had been calm and peaceful, but Qinyu knew that the demonic path was surely investigating what happened in the small world with all their strength. When he went out this time, he also had the intention of finding out more information. After all, the situation in the small world had been far too strange. It was like there was an invisible hand manipulating everyone from start to finish. Qin Yu thought of that great hand that pressed down from the heavens. Its might was limitless and terrifying. If it weren't for the demon head appearing in the skies at the critical moment and forcing it back, it would have been difficult for him to stand here. Duan-san ran over like a gust of wind. His bent waist was so large that it left one worried, as if he might snap at any moment. Lord Yao Bin, what do you need? Qin Yu lightly said, find a quiet seat and bring some light dishes. Also, make sure the wine is good. Duan-san smiled. Lord Yao Bin, rest assured that our snowflake wine is famous far and wide. The shopkeeper has 100-year-old jar in his collection. I will immediately bring it over for you. My lord, please come this way. We will go to the 3rd floor. Because Duan-san was far too enthusiastic, Qin Yu received a great deal of attention along the way. Luckily, when the true demon guard had invited people, many people had been scared away, so there weren't many people that saw Qin Yu. Thus, most of them only glanced at him out of curiosity. They thought he was some rich playboy with a great background and didn't want to provoke trouble, so they all looked away. The 3rd floor was close to Bright Dawn Lake. At this time, a gentle breeze was blowing, bringing with it a bit of moisture. Looking down, one could clearly see young men and women playing on the lakeside. There was a young girl in a swimsuit lying on a chair. At first glance, all of her beauty was reflected in her eyes. It was truly wonderful. Even if she didn't have any dark thoughts, just looking at her was enough to make one happy. Qin Yu nodded and sat down. As Duan-san saw the smile on his face, he felt his spirits rise 100 times. My lord, please wait a moment. I will immediately go and prepare. Perhaps this was the fastest speed in Don Perch Restaurant's history. Not long after Qin Yu sat down, 12 plates of hot and cold fruits were brought in. The shopkeeper also personally brought in a jar of wine. Just by looking at the warm color of the wine jar, one could tell it was aged. When it was opened, the fragrance of wine wafted out. Qin Yu drank the wine and ate the delicacies carefully prepared in the kitchen. Without batting an eyelid, he heard the conversations of several people at a table not too far away. Yesterday, the demonic path had announced to the world what happened in the small world. They didn't conceal anything at all, and the casualties were disastrous. This caused the entire land of divinity and demons to shake. Almost all large influences immediately issued statements of condolences to the demonic path disciples that had died and expressed sympathy for the demonic path. At the same time, they strongly condemned these acts of terrorism that stirred up chaos in the world. Soon, the demonic path issued a second announcement. They would not hesitate to pay any price to find the person who killed the demonic path disciples. No matter who it was, as long as they knew something and didn't report it, they would be punished the same as the murderer, and their entire family would be exterminated. As the several people at the table spoke of this announcement, filled with monstrous killing intent, their faces were filled with pride. The only one that dared to publicly threaten the entire world and forcefully announce the extermination of their entire family was their demonic path. Qin Yu couldn't help but reveal a look of praise. He wondered who it was that made such a public announcement to the world, revealing the tyrannical strength of the demonic path as well as a powerful will. Thinking about it, it should be some great figure that soared above the highest heavens. Exterminating their entire family was truly fierce and overbearing. He lifted a hand and drained his cup. The Sure family brother and sister were also on the 3rd floor, but they were too far away, so Qin Yu didn't notice them. Little sister, let's go. Let's try our luck. Perhaps there will be a chance. Shirziji clenched his teeth. If we wait any longer, we will only be sitting ducks. Shi Qingqing's heart skipped a beat. She had always been overcautious and overcautious, but she never imagined that their Sure family would be forced into a desperate situation. If they didn't think of a way to save themselves, they would really be ruined. At this time, she naturally had to try any chance she could. She took a deep breath and nodded. Big brother is right. We cannot wait any longer. Shirziji stood up. Let's go now. The two of them stood up. But as luck would have it, before they arrived, two figures had already arrived at the window overlooking the lake. They were also a man and a woman. Shi Qingqing's eyes flashed with annoyance. This Yao Bin was an elusive person. If she couldn't speak with him today, she didn't know when she would see him again. And what the Shi family lacked the most right now was time. It was all her fault for being too conflicted just now. Otherwise, how could someone else have rushed ahead of her? Shi Ziji's complexion paled. He strode forwards. The experiences of these past 2 days had caused the proud and arrogant young master of an aristocratic family to be filled with rage. Suddenly, the woman in front of him turned around. Shi Ziji's eyes instantly blurred and he drooled. In his eyes, this woman's face was blurry, but there was an indescribable beauty to her. She was simply the most perfect woman in his fantasies. Her eyes were filled with warmth and tenderness. His breathing deepened and his heartbeat quickened. "Big brother!" Shi Qingqing was shocked. She looked at him dripping with sweat, his face flushed red, his breathing labored, and his appearance of infatuation. She hurriedly pulled him back. But this pull wasn't able to rouse Shi Ziji. Shi Qingqing didn't care about her face. She picked up a cup of cold tea from the table and splashed it onto his face. The red-faced young master suddenly sobered up. He looked at his little sister's anxious expression as well as the teacup in her hand that hadn't been set down yet. His heart trembled and a cold chill surged through him. At the same time, his legs weakened and he swayed. Shi Qingqing said, "Big brother, what's wrong?" Shi Ziji's eyes were filled with fear. He looked at the two people in front of him. "It's nothing. Let's return to our room first." His voice was hoarse. "Okay." Shi Qingqing wasn't stupid. She had already realized something was wrong. She quickly called over the juniors of her family and supported Shi Ziji away. "Qin," you looked at the man sitting across from him. This man was incomparably handsome and had a calm bearing. He looked to be in his 30s and his eyes were warm and clear, filled with the vicissitudes of life. Next to him was a beautiful woman who exuded a mature aura. Her waist was slender and her chest was straight. Her figure was graceful, like a ripe peach that seemed as if a single touch would cause water to flow out. The man was handsome and the woman was charming. No matter how one looked at it, this was a couple that made one envious. But at this time, all Qin Yu felt in his heart was nervousness. No, it was more accurate to say that he was extremely nervous. Whether it was the purple moon or the cosmic sea-cross bell, both of them had endowed Qin Yu with an extremely keen sensing ability. Moreover, after activating a portion of his great Tao body, he could almost see the invisible rules of the world. The man and woman in front of him seemed ordinary, but in Qin Yu's eyes, the rules around them twisted, forming a complete chaos. It was like they were walking black holes. Qin Yu didn't doubt that either man or woman had the terrifying strength to easily crush him. Calamity, immortal realm. And in Heavenly Demon City, in the current situation, the only Calamity immortals that dared to appear in public were super powerhouses of the demonic path. Could it be that what he did in the small world had already been exposed? But if it was exposed, Qin Yu didn't believe that they would wait 3 days before returning. This was because the temptation of demon blood crystals was something that not even a Calamity immortal could resist. Forcefully maintaining his composure, Qin Yu displayed 120% of his strength. He frowned, a bit puzzled. He hesitantly asked, "Is there something you two need?" The white-clothed man had a light expression. He smiled, meeting here his fate. "Won't you invite us to drink a cup of wine?" Qin Yu suddenly said, "You two must have smelled the fragrance of wine. This snowflake wine is indeed rich and mellow. I was just feeling lonely drinking it alone, so you two came at just the right time." He lifted his hand. Duan-san, who had already noticed him, ran over. "My lord, what are your orders?" Qin Yu said, "Add 2 more sets of chopsticks." The food was soon delivered. Qin Yu personally poured wine cups. He smiled and said, "Please." Duan-san drew to the side. He couldn't help but roll his eyes. Just who were these two people? How arrogant. Duan-san viewed Qin Yu as a benefactor that could change his destiny. He instinctively didn't want Qin Yu to suffer any losses, even if it was something as trivial as this. But that woman was truly beautiful. With just a single glance, he almost had a shameful hard time. The white-clothed man picked up a wine cup and sniffed it. He nodded. "It's really good." He lifted a hand and drank it. He closed his eyes, as if savoring the aftertaste. The woman beside him suddenly said, "Yao Bin, how much of what happened in the small world did you hide?" Qin Yu's complexion changed. He asked, "Who are you too?" The woman lightly said, "You only need to answer." Qin Yu took a deep breath. His complexion darkened, as if he would erupt at any moment. At this time, the white-clothed man opened his eyes. "We were just curious and asked. If little friend doesn't want to answer, then don't say anything." Qin Yu's complexion was cloudy and uncertain. After several breaths of time, he sighed. "Whatever. Since I already have my heart set on the demonic path, even if I don't say anything today, do you think I can always avoid it?" He faced the two people. "It's true that I hid something, but everyone has secrets they don't want others to know. I can only say that I have already said everything I know about the key matters." The white-clothed man smiled. He placed the wine cup on the table. With a light cracking sound, the world around Qin Yu instantly shook. His heart began to beat uncontrollably. It pushed his blood through his blood vessels and raced through his body at high speeds, emitting a deep rumbling sound. Across from him, the white-clothed man's eyes brightened for a moment before he composed himself. He glanced at Qin Yu and stood up. "Because of the sudden change in the small world, there have been serious casualties. The demonic path has decided to absorb all the cultivators that managed to leave the small world alive. So, congratulations, little friend. You will soon be able to fulfill your wish and become a member of the demonic path." He turned and walked out. The beautiful woman who exuded a seductive aura swept her eyes over Qin Yu, a bit surprised. Then she followed behind the white-clothed man. It was only when they reached the ground floor that Qin Yu regained his composure. He gradually regained control of his body, and his heartbeat returned to normal. He stood up and walked to the opposite side of the third floor. When he looked down, he could no longer see the figure of the man and woman. Qin Yu's complexion was cloudy and uncertain. He muttered, "Just who are they?" The white-clothed Lord Demon Envoy had a calm expression as he walked along the long willow embankment of Bright Dawn Lake. There were many people coming and going, but not a single one of them could see him, much less touch him. Often, when there was still some distance between them, they would be pushed away. And what was strange was that from start to finish, no one noticed him at all. Yen Lu's footsteps were light as she followed behind him. From time to time, she would look up at his back. Her eyes were filled with tenderness and longing, without the slightest bit of the dignified bearing of a calamity immortal. Finally, the Lord Demon Envoy stopped. He faced Bright Dawn Lake, his eyes calm and tranquil. Yen Lu pulled back her hair. "Do you value this young man very much?" The Demon Envoy lightly said, "He has enough qualifications for me to value him." Yen Lu curled her lips. "Let's not talk about his strength first, but he is quite slippery." The Demon Envoy said, "In today's situation, if it were anyone else, they would have to pretend that they didn't know our identities." He paused for a moment and continued to say, "Having a brain is always better than having no brain. At least in this dangerous world, you can live longer." Yen Lu's eyes sparkled. "Do you really think highly of him?" The Demon Envoy shook his head. "I only have a suspicion." His eyes suddenly sharpened. "For all these years, this junior hasn't had the slightest bit of fame spread out. But one day he soared into the world and became a peerless proud son of heaven of the demonic path. How could there be so many Zhao Qinyuans in this world? So, this in itself makes one suspect him. Yan Lu revealed a thoughtful expression. You are saying that Yao Bin might be related to what happened in the small world. The demon envoy stepped forwards. I have no evidence, and this is only my guess. But I will suppress him for a period of time. If there is a problem, then it will naturally be exposed. If there isn't, then consider this a tempering experience for him, and I will compensate him in the future. The demon envoy turned his back to Yan Lu and avoided her gaze. A trace of guilt flashed in his eyes. In truth, he wasn't good at lying, especially when he was deceiving a woman who had loved him for so many years. But he couldn't allow any mistakes to occur in this matter. He had to be careful. As the revered demon envoy of the Holy Palace, he had suddenly led the true demon guards to Heavenly Demon City. This had already aroused the attention of all sides, and every move he made would be interpreted. But at this time, besides a bit of guilt, the demon envoy was also filled with excitement and joy. In fact, he even had to work extremely hard to maintain his calm. After waiting for countless years, this day had finally arrived. He would hide his thoughts and secretly pay attention to Qin Yu's growth until one day he had enough responsibility. Chapter 517. The Shi family brother and sister received an urgent message from their home. Although they were worried, their faces lit up with joy. This was because the message said that a noble family of the demonic path had returned to their fiefdom, and the Shi family had taken this chance to seek refuge with them. After some consideration, the other party had agreed to accept them. This proved that the Shi family was no longer a rootless duckweed. Now that they had their own backing, it wasn't as easy as others to move against them. The meaning of their father's message was for them to immediately return home so that they wouldn't fly into a rage out of shame and be schemed against by others outside. The Shi family brother and sister were overjoyed. There was no need to say anything more. They immediately ordered the cultivators at home to pack up and leave. Duan-san watched as the group of people happily left. Yesterday, these people had been frowning and distressed, but now they were so happy. He couldn't understand what was going on. It was as if he didn't understand why he had suddenly come into conflict with a guest. He clearly hadn't cursed anyone at all. He opened his mouth to speak, but the guest across from him didn't give him a chance to explain. With a kick to the chest, Duan-san felt his chest tighten, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His complexion paled, and he was barely breathing. You disgraceful thing. Don't think that just because you've latched onto my thigh that you can be arrogant in front of me. Today, I let you know why flowers are so red. Qi Yinshu was dressed in silk robes and a jade belt, his aura overflowing with arrogance. The shopkeeper was sweating profusely. He bowed and smiled. Young Master Qi, please be magnanimous and don't lower yourself to the level of this dirty trash. You disgraceful thing. You actually dare to be so rude to young Master Qi. See if I don't skin you alive later. Hurry up and scram. Qi Yunshu coldly sneered. Hold on. I'm in a bad mood today, so I want to make fun of him. You don't need to worry about this matter. Otherwise, don't blame me for not giving you face. The shopkeeper's smile stiffened. He wanted to say something more, but under Qi Yunshu's icy cold gaze, he swallowed his words. As the head shopkeeper of Don Perch Restaurant, he could be considered a top character. There was no need for him to be so cowardly, but as luck would have it, the Qi family was one of the hidden masters of Don Perch Restaurant. He was someone who worked for others, so how could he dare to act tough in front of his master? He couldn't bear to look at Duan-san. He sighed and drew back. Qi Yinshu's face lit up. He coldly sneered and waved his hand. What are you all standing around for? Bring this brat over. This young master wants to know who gave him the courage to do this. A group of burly guards rushed up and started punching and kicking Duan-san. Although these people held back, Duan-san-er's face was still bruised and swollen, and his whole body softened into a puddle of mud. By the time he was pulled over, he had already fainted. Pah! A cloud of cold air smashed into his face. instantly freezing the skin on his face. A stabbing pain pierced straight into his heart, and Duan-san woke up with a pitiful scream. As he opened his mouth and pulled on his facial muscles, the frozen skin quickly burst open, revealing slender cracks that quickly flowed out. Chi Yunshu frowned in disgust. He took out a jade ruler and lifted Duan-san's chin. "Brat, tell us who your backer is. Let's see if they can shake us. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't be able to leave today." Duan-san was startled. From these words, he could hear a ruthless and bloodthirsty tone. If he didn't give a satisfactory answer, these people would really kill him. Of course, in order to maintain basic order, these people would be punished afterwards. But at most they would be fined some spirit stones. As for killing someone, there was no need to think about it. Young master, what do you want to know?" His mouth was leaking air, and most of his teeth had fallen out. As he thought about how he had been so high-spirited just now, Duan-san almost cried. Chi Yin-shu waved his hand, and the jade ruler emitted a loud cracking sound. Duan-san's bruised cheeks suddenly swelled up, and 2 more teeth flew out. "That's not the right answer. Think carefully about what I asked." Duan-san's head was spinning. There were layers upon layers of people in front of him, but as he heard these words, his heart still shrank. Chi Yin-shu and the others had deliberately stirred up trouble today. They naturally didn't have any intention of making things difficult for him, and Duan-san was well aware of this. He didn't have the qualifications to do so. Yes, even if someone wanted to make things difficult for him, that still depended on whether or not he had the qualifications. Since they didn't want to make things difficult for him, then as he thought about what Chi Yin-shu was asking him, Duan-san shivered. He already guessed the only possibility. These people had come for Lord Yaobin. To put it more elegantly, this was called a fire at the city gates, bringing disaster to the fish in the moat. To put it more crudely, this was being unjustly attacked. If he said Yaobin's name, then he shouldn't have anything to do with it. But did he really dare to say it? Yaobin was someone that even the true demon guards had politely asked to leave. If he angered him, then he could simply move a finger, and he would be beyond redemption. Moreover, he might even implicate his little sister. If he didn't say it, then at most he would be the only one who would suffer. He might not really die. Duan-san wasn't stupid. He knew how to calculate this debt. "Young Master Chi, it was all because I had eyes but failed to see that I offended you. It has nothing to do with anyone else. I ask young Master Chi to be magnanimous and spare my rotten life." Chi Yin-shu slapped his hand down again. Both sides of his mouth swelled up. "Brat, I'll ask you one last time. Will you speak or not?" This time he was truly angered. He had been entrusted by someone to come here, not to show off his power and prestige. He had already made a promise to the others. If he didn't obtain anything, then that would be the same as picking up a stone and smashing it on his own foot. Duan-san felt as if his bones were cracking. The pain was so intense that his vision darkened. He forcefully shook his head, but he couldn't speak. Chi Yin-shu was enraged. "Good, very good. Since you want to die, then I will fulfill your wish. Beat him to death, and if anything happens, I will take responsibility." Duan-san closed his eyes, but the expected storm of blows didn't arrive. Instead, there was the sound of several heavy objects falling to the ground. Then, pained groans entered his ears. Duan-san opened his eyes and saw a black-robed figure in front of him. He choked with sobs and struggled to kneel on the ground, kowtowing. Qin Yu's voice was calm. "There's nothing else for you to do. Leave." Chi Yin-shu was startled. He was immediately overjoyed. "Who are you?" This brat had actually jumped in here himself. This was truly a case of wearing out iron shoes in search of nothing. Qin Yu had no expression. "Screw off." He was disinclined to bother with this sort of thing that couldn't be brought to the surface. But just who was it that had deliberately set him up today? Things weren't simple at all. Qi Yunshu was enraged. He clenched his teeth. "You bastard! Who do you think you are that you dare to be so rude to me? Men, capture him for me." The ones who were truly here to capture him weren't some useless people on the ground, but true masters, his father's bodyguards. In order to mobilize these people, Qi Yunshu had spent a great deal of time and effort. He had paid a great price to have his family relent. But as long as he could accomplish this, everything was worth it. Whoosh, whoosh. 3 figures held forwards, all of them holding sabers in their hands. Their faces were firm and determined. Qi Yunshu lifted a hand and pointed. "It's him." In the next moment, 3 radiant saber lights held forwards like waterfalls falling from the highest heavens. Just looking at them was enough to shake one's soul. What a strong saber intent. This was a true killing saber. It was unknown just how many lives had been cut down to condense such a concentrated killing intent. Moreover, the strongest thing was that although these 3 saber lights weren't one, they came from the same source. It was as if they had cultivated the same saber technique, so when they slashed down, they complemented each other. 3 sabers were one saber, coming straight at them. Qi Yu's eyes flashed, a bit of surprise in them. 3 early blue sea cultivators could actually erupt with killing power comparable to a revered level master when they joined forces. However, this was only enough to surprise him. As for worrying, that wasn't necessary at all. He lifted a hand and pressed forwards. The radiant saber lights seemed to crash into an invisible mountain, trembling and collapsing. The 3 saber-wielding people revealed shocked expressions. They nearly couldn't hold onto their weapons. With stuffy coughs, they were forced backwards, each step causing the ground to crack. After several steps, the 3 of them were barely able to stop themselves. Their blood tumbled, and the webbing between their thumb and forefinger had been split open by the saber hilt, causing blood to constantly drip down. As they looked at Qi Yu, their eyes were filled with awe and shock. This was because they knew that this person could easily crush their attacks. If he wanted to kill them, it wouldn't be difficult at all. One of the guards cupped his hands together. "Thank you for showing mercy." He turned and said, "Young master, it's time for us to leave." To have such strength at such a young age, he definitely wasn't a good opponent to provoke. Seeing that Qi Yu didn't have any intention of dealing a heavy blow, it was best to leave first. Qi Yunshu was stunned. He never thought that these guards that his father always boasted about as being incomparably fierce were actually so useless. With just a single saber strike, they had been forced back by someone, and each of them had been injured. This was too shameful. His face flushed red. He stomped his feet and cursed. "Trash! All of you are trash!" He pointed a finger at Qi Yu. "You bastard! You know who I am, and yet you dare to touch my people!" Qi Yu had a calm expression. "I don't know who you are, and I have no interest in you. I am only reminding you not to provoke me again." The complexions of the 3 guards changed. From this calm voice, they could feel a bit of blood. They said, "Young master, if you don't leave now, we will report today's events truthfully to the old master." Qi Yunshu's complexion paled. He turned and walked away. The 3 guards relaxed. They cupped their hands together towards Qi Yu and quickly followed behind. Just as Qi Yunshu was about to leave, he suddenly stopped and coldly glared at Duan Sen. Nothing had gone smoothly today, and it was all because of this brat. Originally saying that he would make fun of him was only an excuse, but now he really was a punching bag. "Duan Sen, or is it? I heard you have a little sister, and she looks quite good." Duan Sen stiffened, fear in his eyes. Qi Yunshu turned his head and coldly sneered. "There will always be a time when she isn't around, right? At that time, just watch as I play with them to death." Qi Yu frowned. His silent appearance caused Qi Yunshu to feel much better. He couldn't help but laugh. This was the style that a young master should have. Wherever he lost face, he would take it back from there. Humph, humph. Those that dared to oppose him would never have a good ending. Qin Yu let out a breath, a bit of helplessness on his face. Why is it that there are always people who vividly interpret the words the ignorant have no fear? The complexions of the 3 guards changed. They turned and raised their sabers. Although they were angry at Qi Yinshu for acting so recklessly, they couldn't watch helplessly as something happened to him. But this time, Qin Yu didn't give them a chance to use their sabers. A gust of wind blew past them, and the 3 guards were sent flying backwards, blood spraying out from their noses and mouths. Chapter 518. Don Perch Restaurant was deathly silent. The shopkeeper's legs trembled and his face was ashen. He never thought that a minor matter would develop into such a situation. He opened his mouth, wanting to say that he should let go of young Master Qi first, and that anything could be discussed. But he was suppressed by Qin Yu's aura and didn't dare to make a single sound. Qin Yu stared at the ruthless Qi Yinshu, his eyes indifferent. He had no thoughts of inquiring about any information from him. This sort of brainless young master was clearly someone else's pawn. Even if he continued to investigate, he wouldn't be able to obtain any results. Qin Yu suddenly felt very irritated. He had dealt with the Black Demon sect, tempered himself in a small world, rushed into the City Lord mansion, and even been shocked by 2 mysterious calamity immortals a few days ago. It wasn't easy for him to reach where he was today. He was just about to smoothly enter the demonic path and achieve the crucial step of his revenge. So why did he have to stir up trouble? Couldn't he just be honest and live in harmony with each other? The pupils of the 3 guards shrank. They could feel the cold aura coming from Qin Yu's body. He really did have killing intent. Sir, don't be impulsive. Today's matter is all my family's young master's fault. If you can be magnanimous, our Qi family will be eternally grateful. A guard hurriedly said. Qi Yinshu didn't believe that Qin Yu would really dare to move against him. He had always been a lawless person, thinking that he was number 3 in this world. Brett, you are dead. I guarantee you that you will die a miserable death. Even though his neck was being grabbed and it was incomparably difficult for him to speak, young Master Qi still spat out these words. His eyes were filled with even more hatred and malice. Qin Yu suddenly smiled. It was as if he had suddenly found an important reason to smoothly make a decision. Let go of junior apprentice Brother Qi. A cold and gloomy voice sounded out. A young cultivator with a slightly blue complexion appeared on the scene. Qi Yinshu was overjoyed. Senior apprentice Brother Ma. His eyes were filled with excitement. Hurry and save me. Kill him. The 3 guards' complexions darkened. They were worried about their young master's intelligence when he wasn't online. You are still in someone else's hands, so why are you shouting so arrogantly? Aren't you afraid that he will shake your hand and snap your neck? Ma Yunsong had a calm demeanor, and he had the demeanor of a great master. He calmly nodded and said, Junior apprentice brother, rest assured. Since I am here, I won't allow anyone to touch you. He was overjoyed. As he spoke, he had finished his preparations. His cold eyes fell on Qin Yu, a sharp light flashing in them. During this period of time, the sect was striving for the support of the Qi family. If he could save Qi Yinshu, then that would absolutely be a great merit. Brat, thank you for giving me this opportunity. A sound wave that couldn't be heard by the human ear suddenly exploded in the air. Many people's eyes instantly went blank, and their consciousness fell into darkness. Although this darkness only lasted for an extremely short period of time before disappearing, it still caused the people in the inn to reveal expressions of horror. Curtain of darkness! A guest shouted in a low voice, instantly igniting the crowd. An old man who was watching the excitement had his calm expression wiped away, replaced with a grave expression. At such a young age, he actually managed to cultivate the curtain of darkness, the soul-burying sect's guardian divine ability. It is truly inconceivable. No wonder he's so confident. He's a young expert from the soul burial sect. It is rumored that when one cultivates the canopy of the dark heavens to a high level, one can cover 1 trillion living beings with a single thought, causing their souls to sink into eternal darkness. They will be cut off from the outside world and become a living dead that has lost its consciousness. You and I were only affected by the shock waves, so we can recover in a short period of time. If we were to face it head-on, I fear we would have to spend the rest of our lives in bed. Everyone sighed with emotion. Whispers spread into his ears, and in addition to the awe and reverence in everyone's eyes, Ma Tsong-yin straightened his back even more. His expression was indifferent, but there was also a bit of pity and helplessness, as if he were trying to act cool. Why did you have to make me do it? Everyone looked at him. As expected, he came from a famous sect and didn't rely on his strength to act recklessly. Even if he had a reason for what happened today, they still couldn't bear it. The eyes of many young women began to shine. It seemed that as long as little Ma was willing, he could enjoy a free warm bed service tonight, until a cultivator hesitantly said, "It seems that young Master Chi is still being held." The surroundings fell silent. Ma Tsong-yin was forced to leave the environment he was enjoying. He looked at the person who spoke with dissatisfaction. His curtain of darkness had reached small success. As long as he was struck, there was no way he could break free. What was with this fellow's eyes? He really hadn't let go. Could it be his mortal body's instinct? Yes, that must be it. Ma Tsong-yin coughed. "Junior apprentice brother Chi, you can free yourself now." Chi Yunshu's face turned purple. He cursed inwardly. "You bastard, come and try. My hand is like cast iron. I can't move at all." Ma Tsong-yin felt that something was wrong. He took a deep breath and was about to step forwards when a calm voice echoed out from behind him. "Junior apprentice nephew Ma, come back. You are not this little friend's match." His robe was half black and half white, his hair was half white, and his shoes were one black and one white. Although his attire was strange, when one looked at him, one's heart would naturally feel at peace. It was as if they were looking at someone close to them. At this time he faintly smiled, his voice gentle and light. "Little friend, how about letting him go first?" Qin Yu remained silent. His smile didn't change. Today was only a misunderstanding. Let him go and explain things. What did you say? Qin Yu interrupted him. Taoist Black-White paused for a moment. "I said that as long as you let him go, I can explain." He was interrupted again. Previous sentence. Taoist Black-White's smile became even warmer. "I asked you to let him go." Qin Yu nodded. "I'm sorry, I was a bit distracted just now, so I didn't hear you clearly." His next words were like a slap to the face. "Why?" He was apologizing at first, and then suddenly changing the topic. Was this really okay? Taoist Black-White thought that he had a good recuperation, but he was so angry that blue veins popped out from the corners of his eyes. If it weren't for his status, he would have already cursed out loud. He winked at Chi Yunshu, but the normally clever and clever apprentice nephew Ma had been struck so hard that he had lost his soul. He simply didn't see anything. His mind was filled with only one thought. He's fine, he's fine, he's fine. How could he be fine? Taoist Black-White cursed him for being trash in his heart. Then he could only step forward. "Little friend, do you know that you should forgive and forget? There will always be people in this world that you cannot afford to provoke. The Chi family's young master has a precious status. If something happens to him, you won't be able to leave Heavenly Demon City. Do you really want to take this step?" Chi Yinshu's brain was lacking oxygen, and he was seeing stars. But he still insisted on his right to speak. "Elder Black-White, don't waste words with him. Kill him." The 3 guards had dark lines on their foreheads. Once more, they discovered that the way everyone looked at their young master had turned into one of pity and concern for a mentally handicapped child. This level of intelligence, Taoist Black-White angrily cursed in his heart. "If I had confidence I could kill him without injuring you, why would I need a brat like you to blabber here?" Ma Tsongyun's curtain of darkness had already reached a certain degree of maturity. After this person received it, he didn't show any reaction. Either his soul was tyrannical or he had a treasure on his body. This wasn't easy to deal with. The key point was that they had already stepped forward today, so they had to deal with this matter. Otherwise, let alone being on good terms with the Qi family, both sides would definitely fall out. As Taoist Black-White was distressed, Qin Yu suddenly said, "I will give you one more chance. As long as you can subdue me, like apprentice, nephew Black-White, I will cut my hands and let him go." Taoist Black-White couldn't be bothered with this irritating way of addressing him. He happily said, "Really?" Qin Yu nodded. "Of course. Good. I will also display my curtain of darkness. I ask for your guidance." The words Yor indicated that in his heart he already considered Qin Yu a cultivator on the same level. Since everyone was on the same level, it was reasonable for him to attack with his full strength. One couldn't help but admit that an old fox was indeed an old fox. With just a few words, he was able to play all sorts of tricks. The people of Don Perch residence all had strange complexions. This was because Qin Yu's decision gave off the feeling that he wanted to take this chance to step down from the stage and release Black-White. This was completely different from his previous style. Wasn't he supposed to be cold and indifferent, unafraid of power? Just now he had a face that said, "Don't think I don't dare to kill you," but now he was acting like this. TSK, he really was shameless. Everyone looked at him with eyes full of contempt. As for how to step down, wasn't that simple? As long as Taoist Black-White attacked, he could take advantage of the chance to shake him a few times and then spit out a few mouthfuls of blood, saying that he was fierce and that they would meet again in the future. Everything would be fine. Taoist Black-White also thought this in his heart. He looked at Qin Yu with a deep meaning in his eyes, as if saying that he understood and didn't need to worry. Hee, brat. Do you know where my reputation as Taoist Black-White came from? Clothes, shoes, hair, and the like aren't important at all. Being white on the outside and black on the inside is a profound boundary. If you don't die today, how can I be on good terms with the Qi family? Haha, you can go in peace. Hum! There was another invisible humming sound. Everyone could hear it, but their minds only wavered for a moment before they regained their clarity. Of course, this wasn't because Taoist Black-White's curtain of darkness was weak, but because all of his strength was gathered within himself, with only a small amount of his aura leaking out. This made it even more terrifying. Qin Yu stiffened. Everyone had expected this. Next, he would spit out blood. "Little brat, your acting skills are far from good." Unfortunately, while the audience had guessed the opening, they didn't know what would happen next. Within Qin Yu's soul space, Purple Moon and Mimi were busy fighting for food. A mass of black fog shivered and was instantly eaten up. Qin Yu said, "Is that enough?" Mimi beamed. Not bad, it really is delicious." Purple Moon's light dimmed and she maintained a cold and aloof posture. She didn't respond to Qin Yu's words, but looking at her appearance, she should be satisfied. Shwa! His consciousness returned to his body. Qin Yu slowly said, "The soul burial sect's curtain of darkness truly lives up to its reputation." There really weren't many foods that could catch the fancy of that little lass Mimi and Purple Moon. Taoist Black-White's mind shook, even concealing his disappointment. This boy was actually completely fine. His lips twitched, and he squeezed out a smile, making an expression as if he were saying that their cooperation was quite good. "I also admire your strength. Today, Kacha!" A clear sound spread out. The entire Dawn Perch fell deathly silent. Everyone's eyes widened as if they had seen a ghost. They stared at Qin Yu, at the corpse in his hand whose neck was bent at an exaggerated angle. Qi Yunchu's bloodshot eyes widened. There wasn't much panic in them, only disbelief, as if he were saying, "How could you dare to kill me?" But Qin Yu had killed him. His actions were so clean that it surpassed everyone's expectations. If it weren't for the fact that he had to bring food for the two guests in his soul space, he would have already done it. Since there was no need to wait, why waste time? If he killed someone, there would definitely be trouble. At the very least, he would have thoroughly offended this Qi family. But Qi Yu had his own reasons. The reason Qi Yunshu came here today was to draw him in, and this matter was inextricably related to the demon blood crystals. Qi Yu didn't have any evidence, but he didn't need any evidence for this matter. He could freely prove himself. Thus, he killed someone. He used Qi Yunshu's death as a warning to everyone who tried to do something to him. He wasn't a soft persimmon. If they wanted to pinch him, then they would have to be prepared to die. Perhaps he was a bit impulsive, but Qi Yu had to display the toughest attitude possible, because once he retreated, these people would only take a yard after taking an inch. Chapter 519. Wasn't he supposed to take this chance to step down? How could he suddenly kill someone? This change in direction was a bit too big and nearly broke his waist. Everyone stared blankly at this scene, their minds blanking out. After an unknown period of time, some people finally regained their composure. They subconsciously shivered and began to draw back. They had never been afraid of things becoming too big for them to watch. But today's matter had surpassed their limits. If they continued to stay here, they might be caught up in a disaster. At that time, they wouldn't even have a place to cry. Of course, it was best to leave as soon as possible. There was no lack of smart people. Even if they didn't think of this at first, they still reacted as they saw the surrounding people draw back. In a few breaths' time, the dense crowd outside dispersed in all directions. There was a guest staying at Dawn Perch Inn who didn't even return to his room. He turned and ran out of the inn. He absolutely couldn't stay here any longer. This was Heavenly Demon City's Qi family. Although they weren't a noble family of the demonic path, their true strength wasn't any worse than a true, noble family of the demonic path. Although Qi Yunshu wasn't favored, he was still the son of the Qi family's main bloodline and had an incomparably honored status. Now that he was killed in his family's sphere of influence, how could this matter be settled? Taoist Black-White shivered. He could no longer maintain his calm and gentle tone. You killed Qi Yunshu. You actually killed him. This madman, did he not know that the Qi family's old ancestor liked this ignorant and incompetent grandson of his? Bastard, if you want to die, then you actually want to drag them down with you. You really deserve to die. Qi Yunshu had died on the spot. Although it wasn't directly related to them, would the Qi family really think so? They would definitely vent their anger on them. Now, the only method was to kill this brat and use his head to exchange for the Qi family's forgiveness. Qi Yu's eyes were calm. Since he decided to kill someone, he had naturally prepared himself for the consequences. I killed him, but what do you want? He let go and the corpse fell to the ground. This carefree attitude, he simply couldn't tolerate it. Taoist Black-White roared out, You evil beast, die for me! Bang! A wild aura shot into the skies. The ground shattered inch by inch. Countless, beautifully trimmed flowers and grass were uprooted and turned to dust. Qi Yu narrowed his eyes. Although he looked a bit strange, his strength wasn't bad. But compared to Zhao Qianyuan, he was far worse. At this moment, 3 cold killing intents suddenly erupted, locking onto Taoist Black-White. He frowned and stopped what he was doing. Turning his head, his pupils shrank and he quickly restrained his aura. True Demon Guard. A layer of cold sweat instantly appeared on Taoist Black-White's forehead. Even if the position of the Holy Palace's Supreme Elder was currently vacant, the true Demon Guards were still the Holy King's personal guards in name. To oppose a true Demon Guard was the same as offending a Holy King. At other times it might have been better, but the various influences of the demonic path were all trying to gain the support of the Holy Palace. For something like this to occur at such a critical juncture, Taoist Black-White didn't doubt that he would die an incomparably miserable death in order to quell the anger of the Holy Palace. A true Demon Guard asked coldly, What do you want to do? Taoist Black-White squeezed out a smile. This is a misunderstanding. a misunderstanding. I was just about to capture this murderer. Fellow Taoists, please take a look. The Qi family's direct descendant Qi Yunshu was killed by this murderer just now. His methods were extremely cruel. The Qi family, the 3 true demon guards, furrowed their eyebrows, but they soon relaxed. This matter will be investigated by the demonic path. You may draw back. In terms of cultivation, even if the 3 true demon guards joined forces, they still might not be Taoist Black-White's match. But as the personal guards of the Holy King, their status was extremely high and they naturally had the confidence to do so. A true demon guard stepped forwards. He cupped his hands together and smiled. Fellow Taoist Yao Bin, we meet again. He had already seen these 3 people when they brought him to the city Lord Mansion last time. Qin Yu cupped his hands together. May I ask why you 3 have come here? The true demon guard said, Today the 3 of us have been ordered to deliver the documents and seals. His smile widened. Congratulations, fellow Taoist Yao Bin. After today, you are a member of the demonic path. I wish fellow Taoist a bright future. Taoist Black-White's eyes widened. He finally understood. No wonder this matter had to be investigated by the demonic path. This was the privilege of demonic path cultivators. Even if they committed a crime, they could only be punished by the demonic path. No one else was allowed to interfere. Wasn't this very overbearing and unreasonable? That's right, this was how it was. But the demonic path had this sort of qualifications and confidence. However, the attitudes of these 3 true demon guards seemed a bit too gentle. Even if they were facing someone from the demonic path, they should still remain cold and aloof. Could it be that this Yao Bin status was different? Taoist Black-White suddenly had a premonition that Qi Yunshu would die in vain today. In other words, because of Qi Yunshu's death, he was doomed to incur a great deal of trouble. As Taoist Black-White thought of this, he nearly cried. Everything was fine. So why did something like this have to happen to him? What an unlucky year. Qin Yu's eyes flashed. He hadn't heard of this news yet. So how come the true demon guards had suddenly come? Moreover, they had come at such a perfect time. His thoughts raced. But at least this matter was beneficial to him. He quietly received the items and expressed his thanks to the 3 people. The true demon guard swept his eyes over Qi Yunshu's corpse. His eyes flashed. Fellow Taoist Yao Bin, when a demonic path cultivator faces danger, they can randomly kill someone. He paused for a moment and continued to say, Of course, even if the fault lies with fellow Taoist, as a demonic path disciple, you can still enjoy immunity. All you need to do is pay some spirit stones. This was the same as obtaining a legal license to kill someone. Moreover, it was issued by the demonic path, one of the strongest influences in the land of divinity and demons. No matter how he looked at it, it gave off the feeling of a gangster. But Qin Yu had to admit that this feeling wasn't bad at all. He smiled and said, Thank you for the reminder, but for today's matter, I won't compensate you with a single spirit stone. Since he wanted to express his most unyielding attitude, he naturally had to do it to the end. In any case, he had already offended the Qi family, so he didn't fear the enmity between them deepening. The true demon guard's eyes brightened. He told Qin Yu that 3 days from now, someone would bring him away. Without saying anything further, he cupped his hands together and bid his farewells. Since both sides weren't familiar with each other right now, going too far was as bad as falling short. Qin Yu sent the 3 people away. Taoist Black-White didn't say a single word. He grabbed the still, dazed Ma Tsongyun and brought Qi Yunshu's corpse with him. With a gloomy expression, he quickly left. At this moment, Black-White's mood was even worse. This was because he thought of something even worse. Offending a tyrannical junior wasn't anything at all. Offending a demonic path disciple wasn't anything at all. But when both sides superimposed on each other, that meant he had offended a tyrannical demonic path disciple. Moreover, he was very young and seemed to have great potential. This was truly hard to bear. Who knew just how far this boy would be able to walk in the future? Although he had a considerable status in the soul burial sect, and the chances of him being punished in the future weren't high, even a 1% chance was enough to make him feel uncomfortable. After sending off the 3 true demon guards, Qin Yu returned to the inn. Duan Ling Tian and the other 2 knelt to the ground with red eyes. "Thank you, my lord. Thank you, my lord." He didn't know what Qin Yu was thinking, but from what he saw, it was clear that Qin Yu had killed someone today to help him. How could he not be grateful? As for whether or not the Qi family would retaliate against him because of this, he no longer cared. After all, he had picked up his life today. Once he returned, he would immediately arrange for his little sister to leave. As long as he stayed in Heavenly Demon City, the Qi family shouldn't try to track down his little sister's whereabouts. That was enough. The empty and messy Dawn Perch Inn was in a mess. The shopkeeper's complexion was pale white, and he seemed to have lost his soul. He hadn't done anything wrong today. Qi Yinshu's death absolutely couldn't be blamed on him. But in this world, there was no such thing as absolute fairness. The Qi family's young master had died in the business he was responsible for, so how could he have any good ending? Perhaps the best result would be being expelled from Heavenly Demon City. If he offended the Qi family, he feared he wouldn't have any foothold in Heavenly Demon City in the future. He had toiled his entire life, starting from a small servant boy. How much pain and suffering had he suffered in order to climb up to his current status? Now that he had become nothing, who could accept that? Moreover, he wasn't alone right now. His entire family was counting on him to make a living. The shopkeeper looked at Qin Yu. He should hate this person. If it weren't for him, would he have fallen to such a state? But he didn't dare to. Qi Yinshu had killed him just like that, and from the current situation, he didn't seem to have suffered any harm at all. Moreover, he was just an old man without any power or influence. Duan San crawled up and walked in front of the shopkeeper. He fell to his knees. "Uncle, although we are separated by several generations and our bloodline is thin, I know you took care of me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to enter Dawn Perch Inn. Today, I have stirred up trouble for you. I fear this nephew will never be able to repay you in this life. In my next life, I will work like an ox or a horse to make it up to you." The shopkeeper's lips trembled. He let out a long sigh. "Hurry up and leave. The further you go, the better." Duan Sana smiled. "I will send my little sister away, and then stay here. Otherwise, the Qi family definitely won't give up. I will have to give them an explanation." This explanation was his life. If he died, his little sister would live. The shopkeeper was a shrewd man. He quickly understood this point. He patted Duan San's shoulder with a trembling hand. "Originally, I wanted to raise you into my successor. You brat, you are willing to endure hardship, and you are also smart. But what a pity your life isn't good." Qin Yu could see that Duan San was exuding a carefree and relaxed aura. This had nothing to do with strength or breadth of mind. Rather, it was a calm and unhurried expression that came from disregarding life and death. With a thought, he guessed what the 2 of them were thinking. He couldn't help but reveal a bit of appreciation in his eyes. This Duan San was actually someone who cared deeply about relationships. When he was threatened by Qi Yinshu, he didn't say anything even when death was at hand. Although there was an 80% chance that this was because he was afraid of his little sister's retaliation. If he cared so much about family, it couldn't be too bad. If it were him, he would likely make the same choice as Duan San. Subconsciously, Qin Yu thought of Guling. Was that girl doing well? Although the world was vast, he had very few family members. Ningling was one, and so was Ling. A person's fate was mysterious and wonderful. Duan San racked his brains to curry favor with Qin Yu, but when he fell into a hopeless situation and was prepared to welcome death, the opportunity actually fell into his hands. Qin Yu called out to Duan San, who was about to leave. "I looked through the document just now. Demonic path disciples have the right to recruit several personal servants. If you are willing, I can give you 2 spots. Duan Saner was stunned. The shopkeeper kicked him to his knees. You little brat, what are you waiting for? Duan San quickly kowtowed, tears flowing down his face. He knew that Chinyu was saving his life and even his little sister's life. Otherwise, with a weak and frail girl like her, without him to shelter her from the wind and rain, just how long would she be able to live? It wasn't that he couldn't think of it, but that he didn't want to think of it. He didn't dare to think of it, because as long as he was alive, there would be hope. How could he bring his little sister down with him? Before his mother died, Duan-san had promised to protect his little sister for the rest of his life. Even if he didn't accomplish this, if he died in front of his little sister and saw his mother in the underworld, she probably wouldn't be too angry. But now, all difficulties had vanished. He didn't need to die, and his little sister wouldn't leave him. Good, this was far too good. Snot and tears mixed together. Duan-san's face was a mess. He looked up at Chinyu with teary eyes. From this moment on, he made up his mind. In this life, for the rest of his life, he would use it to repay this kindness. Chinyu's eyes were a bit sore. It had been a long time since he had this sort of mood swings. He took a deep breath, his voice unconsciously gentle. Go, bring your little sister here. He turned and walked towards the back courtyard. He paused for a moment and then said, Go to the courtyard I live in. Don't stay outside. Chapter 5:20. The 3 true demon guards left Dawnperch Inn and boarded a speed car to return to the city Lord Mansion. The one who had been speaking with Chin was clearly the one with the most prestige out of the 3. He leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes in meditation. The 2 true demon guards looked hesitant. They looked at each other, and one of them said, Big brother, aren't your words too straightforward today? Wang Chao opened his eyes. We're all brothers, so there's no need to hide anything. Do you 2 think that I shouldn't remind Yao Bin about killing people? The corners of his mouth turned up. Fine. Let's not talk about anything else. Even if the Qi family finds out about what I said today, what do you think they can do? Do they dare to deal with me? The true fiend guard glared. They dare. Wang Chao smiled. Isn't that enough? Remember, us brothers were lucky, and we suffered a great deal to become true demon guards. As long as we have this identity, no one can touch us unless we commit a great crime. The 3rd true demon guard said, Big brother, that's not what we mean. Although we're not afraid of the Qi clan, they're still the tyrants of Heavenly Demon City. You and I have relatives and friends behind us. If we offend them, they won't dare to do anything on the surface, but it's still disgusting if they do something behind our backs. Wang Chao pointed and said, Second bro, listen carefully. Third bro's words are more accurate. However, I can't explain too much about this matter. You just have to remember that I have my reasons for befriending Yao Bin. After pausing for a moment, he decided to reveal a little more. Whether the 3 of us can achieve meteoric success in the future will most likely depend on this person. He wouldn't tell them that he had inadvertently seen the demon envoy and Lord Yen Lu enter Dawnperch residence in private. Furthermore, they wouldn't say that it was Yao Bin who had troubled the 2 of them to come here. With Lord Demon Envoy status, would he make a trip just for a nobody? Even though Wang Chao didn't know why, he knew that this was his opportunity. Although life was long, there were only a few opportunities in the world. He would definitely not miss it. Qi family, dominating the Heavenly Devil sect for tens of thousands of years, its inheritance lasting for 10 generations. Geniuses came forth in large numbers, and experts were as common as the clouds. That was exactly what he said. Although such a Qi clan was unable to be conferred the title of a noble family due to certain reasons, its true strength and foundation were already sufficient. In the Heavenly Demon City, it might be a little too much to describe them as absolute, but it was definitely not common. But today, A direct descendant of the Qi clan was casually killed in the Heavenly Devil City, like slaughtering a chicken or a dog. This sort of matter hadn't occurred for many years. Thus, when Qi Yinshu's corpse was sent back to the Qi family by Taoist Black-White, the entire Qi family residence was instantly set ablaze. The violent killing intent soared to the heavens. Countless cultivators in Heavenly Devil City were shocked. They widened their eyes and waited for the Qi clan's response. This matter had already spread through the entire Heavenly Devil City at the fastest speed possible through the mouths of the scattered cultivators who had left Dawnperch residence. The killer, Yao Bin, was now one of the new disciples of the demonic path. Soon, the Qi family's response spread to the outside world. The Qi family's old ancestor personally appeared to suppress the agitated Qi family juniors who wanted to kill and take revenge. His original words were, "If you don't want to live, then don't implicate the entire Qi family. That is a disciple of the demonic path. Touching him is disrespect to the demonic path." These words were a bit boastful, but the general meaning was correct. Killing a demonic path disciple was absolutely not a trivial matter, unless it was done stealthily or in some special situation. Once it was discovered, the demonic path would never let this matter rest. In terms of protecting one's own people, no one dared to call themselves first. In the entire land of divinity and demons, if the demonic path thought they were second, then no one dared to call themselves first. Many people were disappointed. They couldn't help but secretly say some sour words. What 10,000-year-old Qi family? They were also characters that bullied the weak and feared the strong. Those who said these words didn't understand the way of survival of a wealthy family. This was because no matter what you wanted to do, your slogan had to be correct. And the slogan you shouted often had nothing to do with what you wanted to do. In fact, both sides even contradicted each other. In the ancestral temple, Qi Yinshu's corpse lay on the cold floor. His complexion was pale white and his eyes were still wide open, filled with disbelief at the moment of his death. Qi Dongtai's eyes were half closed. He sat in a high chair and his voice was light. I already said that people shouldn't be too arrogant, otherwise sooner or later disaster will fall upon them. Sixth brother was obedient in front of me, but once he left the family, he acted like a tyrant. Although I am old, my eyes aren't blind, so I naturally know this. That's why he suffered a fatal disaster today. He only has himself to blame. An indifferent voice spread out in the ancestral temple. The heads of the fourth branch lowered their heads, not daring to speak up. Everyone knew that although the old man cursed and cursed, the truth was that in his heart, the one he liked the most was this ignorant and incompetent Qi Yinshu. He had once privately told an old servant that this little monkey resembled him the most when he was young. Although he appeared calm on the surface, it was unknown just how angry he was in his heart. And indeed, Qi Dongtai's eyes flashed open. But remember this, for our Qi family to rise from being small and weak to become one of the overlords of Heavenly Demon City, and for our lineage to continue to this day, that is not because we understand reason, but because we are ruthless enough. Sixth brother is in the wrong. But even if he deserves to die, we can only ask our ancestors to punish him and kill him. There is no reason for others to do so. Right now, many people are looking at the Qi family as a joke. But let them laugh, because the truth trumps all. I will not allow Yao Bin to enter the demonic path alive. He killed people in Heavenly Demon City, so he must remain here. The third branch head fell to his knees, tears and snot streaming down his face. Thank you, old ancestor. If sixth brother knows this in the underworld, he can rest in peace. He had over a dozen sons, so it was worth debating just how sad he was. But on the surface, he had to pretend to be in so much pain that he wished he were dead. Qi Dongtai frowned in disgust, as if he didn't like third brother's exaggerated performance. But as he thought about how his son had died, he endured his reprimanding. He turned and said in a soft voice, "Go." Let him die a bit more peacefully. The old servant that had followed him for many years grinned, revealing 2 missing yellow teeth. He nodded and left, vanishing into the shadows, looking at this old fellow who was even older than their father, and seemed as if he could kick himself at any moment. The other 4 heads revealed looks of awe. Their father's strength, besides the legendary old ancestor who was still in life and death seclusion, was naturally the strongest in the Qi family. But this old servant was the one they feared the most. Since their father had sent him today, Yao Bin was doomed. Qi Dongtai closed his eyes. Let's wait here. There will soon be a result. I cannot allow 6th brother to die alone. Don Perch residence. Yesterday's bustling hustle and bustle had dispersed. All that was left behind was a desolate scene. In the entire inn, besides a few servants on duty, there wasn't a single person to be seen. Because the illumination array formations had been destroyed, large swathes of the area were in a state of darkness. As one walked in, they subconsciously felt a bit of fear. The old servant's figure walked out from the darkness. He looked up and grinned. Not too far away, a servant opened his mouth, but no words came out. He clutched his neck and fell to the ground. Blood gushed out from his nose and mouth, quickly soaking the ground. The old servant slowly walked forwards. His speed was slow, his footsteps echoing in the empty inn. But what was strange was that every time he passed through the darkness, his figure seemed to fuse into it. When he appeared again, he was already far away. So it didn't take much time for the old servant to enter the rear courtyard. He stood in the light and looked at the independent courtyard in front of him. He nodded, as if he appreciated the construction style of this gate. Then he lifted a hand and slapped it forward. The incomparably sturdy door that was reinforced by the array formation seemed to have suffered a terrifying corrosion. Without a sound, it directly turned into countless black ashes that scattered down. Wisps of black fog spread along the ruins of the array formation, destroying the entire array formation. There was no alarm at all. With a smile, the old servant walked up the steps and entered the courtyard. And at this time, the dead servant in the front courtyard had already been discovered. But when those people went up to investigate, they all fell to the ground, bleeding from their head and dying. The shopkeeper's eyes widened. He shouted, "Don't go over there. Stand back." After walking a safe distance away, he turned to look at the rear courtyard, a deep worry in his eyes. Creak! In the quiet night, the sound of the door opening was particularly grating to the ears. The old servant's eyebrows rose up, a bit of surprise on his face. He looked up. Qin Yu stepped out, his eyes calm. A Qi family member? The old servant shook his head, his voice unpleasant to the ears. "No, I am just a dog that follows the young master." Qin Yu waved his hand. "Forget it. I wasn't curious about your identity to begin with. If you want to kill me, then do it." The old servant cackled. "Youngsters these days are truly amazing. But since you cooperated well enough and didn't try to ask for help, I will give you a quick death." Countless black threads appeared out of thin air. They were like a giant spider web that had already quietly sealed off the entire courtyard. As the old servant lifted a hand, these black threads rapidly grew, approaching Qin Yu. This gloomy and decaying aura was a curse. Qin Yu's eyes flashed, but before he could ask anything, Mimi's excited cheers echoed out from his soul space. "Qin Yu! I discovered that following by your side was the best decision I ever made. You are simply a divine tool that automatically hunts for food. I want this curse. I want it. I want it." Black lines immediately covered his forehead. "Little girl, what do you mean by I want it, I want it?" Whenever you brought up this topic, it felt extremely dirty. Divine artifact? Divine artifact, my ass. The purple moon suddenly brightened. A deep purple light covered his soul space, but it left a small area for Mimi. This was a tacit understanding between the two sides. The little girl was flustered. "Curse, what do you want it for?" Be careful that you don't get a stomach ache. If you defecate in Qin Yu's soul space, he definitely won't be willing. I can eat it. I don't need you to share it with me. Big sister, you should go to sleep. All right, but I want more than half. I want half. I absolutely cannot be less. It was clear that Mimi was being pushed back again and again, but these words seemed to reveal an important piece of information. Purple Moon's gender was Big Sister? How did he know this? Moreover, it seemed that there was a great deal of communication between the two sides. Qin Yu's heart suddenly filled with sorrow. This was because he discovered that although he was the master of Purple Moon, she was cold and aloof and hadn't spoken a single word to him at all. He couldn't think about this. Tears welled up in his eyes. As his thoughts raced, the black threads had already arrived. They wrapped around Qin Yu's body, layer after layer, submerging him. The old servant revealed a look of surprise. After listening to Taoist Black-White's words, he originally thought that he would have to spend some effort. He always felt that something was wrong. But since he was entangled in his curse net, unless he was at the Calamity Immortal Realm, it would be impossible for him to escape this calamity. Was Yao Bin at the Calamity Immortal Realm? What a joke! So what was the reason? Did he need to know? Since Qin Yu wanted to die, he was happy to save time. But soon, the old servant couldn't be happy. This was because he discovered that Qin Yu still hadn't died. Moreover, the power of his curse was being consumed at an astonishing rate. In just a short period of time, he had lost 10% of it. 10% of the curse was enough to poison half of Heavenly Demon City to death. But he still hadn't died? This boy was truly strange. Did he have some sort of treasure that could absorb curse power? But if he thought he could rely on this to preserve his life, he was far too naive.